Good evening and welcome to the Carlisle Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, August 14th, 2018. It's 7 o'clock, and so we're starting the meeting. First, I'll read through the agenda. We may take some of these things out of order. So at 7 o'clock p.m., we will have community input. At 7:05, the Carlisle PTO Bay State Textile combination groups will be here to talk about donation for clothing bins or clothing donation bins.
There you go.
At 7:30, we will discuss the Ferns Country Store Transfer Section 15 Package Store License, Carry-In License. At 7:45, we will get an update on the fire chief search process. At 8:30, an update on the Complete Streets MassWorks TSAC project. At 8:45, we will discuss the FY19 Board of Selectmen goals. At 9:15, discuss the status of CCTV and PEG local access. At 9:30, we will do appointments. 9:35, Town Administrators Report. 9:45, Liaison Reports. 9:55, Cemetery Deeds and Minutes. At 10 o'clock, we will enter into executive session to discuss litigation and union and non-union bargaining. And at 10:30, we will adjourn. And again, we may take some of these out of turn because some of these, I think, are allotted much more time than they will actually need. So with that, I will ask if there's anybody here for community input. Okay. Seeing nobody here for community input, we will move to our 7:05 agenda item, the Carlisle Parent Teachers Organization and Bay State Textiles to discuss clothing donation bins. Yeah. You can come right on up here. If you could just state your name and if you live in Carlisle, your address, and make sure that you speak into the microphone. It doesn't amplify, but this is on TV, and so they'll be able to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So my name's Rebecca Bromark, and I live in Carlisle, 32 Fern Lane, and I'm here as a PTO volunteer representative to tell you some information about the Bay State Textiles program. This is Catherine Larson. She's joining us from the Bay State Textiles program. She's very experienced with bringing these textile bins into towns just like ours, so she was going to provide a little more information. She's the Recycling Development Coordinator there.
Nice, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Again, my name's Catherine Larson. I'm the Recycling Development Coordinator with Bay State Textiles. It was in the spring of 2012, my boss, Paul Curry, developed the school box program as a solution to the problem of unwanted textiles. The Mass DEP had done a solid waste study that at the time 6% of the waste stream in Massachusetts is unwanted textiles, which is clothing, shoes, pocketbooks, household linen, stuffed animals, anything with a fabric base. The DEP has really brought the problem to the forefront. There's on the back on the flyer there, you'll see the average American discards 81 pounds a year, and of which 85% of that ends up in the waste stream. So in Massachusetts, there's 520 million pounds of textiles that ends up in the waste stream, of which 95% can be recycled. So by partnering with the schools, it offers a solution, makes it convenient for the community, generates revenue for the schools. It can be the PTO, it can be the school directly. That's up to the district. So since spring of 2012, we're now in over 90 school districts across Massachusetts. We just got the partnership with Concord, so we'll be launching with Concord for back to school, which will include the Concord Carlisle High School. So we'd welcome the opportunity to service the Carlisle community. You know, not only does it generate revenue for the schools, but it reduces your trash tipping fees, you know, keeping it out of the waste stream. We take the good, the bad, the ugly, as long as it's not wet or contaminated with hazardous material. You know, and I like to say it's a feel-good program because it feels good to clean out your closets. It feels good to support your local community. It feels good to help the environment. You know, it might be a family that can't buy the Yankee Candle from the PTO or something like that, but they can feel good about taking their bag of old clothes and putting it in the box. So with Carlisle being a small community with just one school, our business model is a district-wide program. One box in Carlisle, we've discussed, is not enough equipment for the community. It's my job to make sure there's enough equipment. So we'd like to propose that we put a box at the school and then maybe a box at another location in town. Someplace that's convenient for the community. There's been discussion of the transfer station. The only issue with that is there's limited hours, so maybe we could put it outside the gate or something like that. And that's where, my boss had trailers and transfer stations and recycle centers, but with the limited hours and most towns do curbside, it doesn't get the usage, or it's not as user-friendly as having it at the school where it's, 24/7 access and convenient for the community. So the folder there I bought, I didn't want to overload on material since I'm in the recycling business. But on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side, I set it up so it talks about the problem of unwanted textiles. The right-hand side, the solution. There's a list of all the partnering towns. I gave a comparison for Medfield's one of our smaller communities. It's not quite as small as Carlisle, but they're coming up on 5 years, and I think it's over $16,000 about that they've generated for their PTOs. So it's not get rich quick, but it's an ongoing sustainable program that runs itself. We service our boxes weekly to prevent overflow. I think my boss was really smart partnering with the schools. People tend to respect the boxes. We don't have an issue with dumping. If there's something left next to the box, it's the driver's responsibility to take it. And if we're going to the school every Monday and every Wednesday it's full, then we'd want to add a box. And then so the driver has a hamper with a scale, pulls up, weighs the product. The box holds about 300 to 500 pounds. And then every month we send a rebate check to the PTO based on the weight of collection at a rate of $100 a ton.
I'm sorry, again, what so on the back here, is this what happens to it in the recycle? So 45% of it you find is usable clothing and?
Correct. So we, Bay State Textiles, we just collect the product, bale it, and we ship it out. My boss has customers all around the world. There's a healthy demand globally for unwanted clothing. With my cell phone on the website, I get calls from Pakistan, Bolivia, Saskatchewan. They all want our old clothes. Half the time I can't really talk to them, but I can kind of get them in the right direction. So it goes through a grading process where 45% is reused. Could end up on a hanger in a thrift store in Chile or Canada, could go by tractor trailer down to Texas, could be a father in a developing country that makes a living selling used T-shirts. And so it stimulates the global economy. So what can't be reused is broken down into the different grades, so 20% the fiber grade. There's one of the graphics in there in the folder talks about the stuffing from the stuffed animals could end up in the car seats of our cars. Our cars have about 50 pounds of recycled textiles in them. And we don't think about that as we're out driving around town, and then 30% the wiping grade for rags and the such. So there's a need for the product in other industries versus creating new.
I think the idea of perhaps the transfer station may not be the best place. I think that would be true in towns that have waste pickup and only use a recycle center for recycled goods. Here, everybody goes to the transfer station. There is no waste pickup in this town.
Okay.
So virtually, we're all accustomed to taking whenever we have anything to go into a recycle, we go to the transfer station because that's where everything is and everybody goes at the same time. So that may not be as big an issue here because anytime you have any trash of any sort or recyclables, you go there to do it, and it's on the 3 days a week it's open.
So we'd be willing to try it. We could try it and see what happens. And, after 6 months or so, if we find it's not getting the volume that it should, then, we can move it. Is the transfer station, would that be accessible for our driver to come if it was an off day when it was closed?
I don't think.
Not easily.
No.
So we'd have to schedule on a day when it's open?
Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Well,
A couple of other
it's
boxes.
open 27
Yeah, I was gonna say
hours.
that,
Yeah.
they're usually moving trash around
Yeah.
on certain days afterwards,
So there's 3 boxes there now for textiles,
Yeah.
all of which have, so before we jump to that though, what do we do if there's clothes and bags outside of the bin? Like right now, there's just tons of bags outside of the bins.
Sure, and, you know, it's too bad because there's some good vendors out there, there's some not so good vendors when it comes to service, and that tends to taint the industry for the rest of us. What I like to say is, you know, I'm a phone call away. We don't live in a perfect world. I'm not going to tell you your box will never overflow, but all you have to do is call. If you call at 9 in the morning, chances are I can get somebody out there that day. If it's 3 in the afternoon, it might be the next day. And I think the PTO's team, seems like they've put together quite a team to be able to monitor this and make it a successful program here.
So myself and Emily Richardson were volunteers with the PTO, and we plan to monitor the bins, obviously, you know, very closely, especially in the beginning, but all the time. And we're going to be directly in contact with Catherine, and they come out anyway, right, every single week and check it. But we can, you know, call whenever we see anything, and you know, have people call us if they want us to call her. So.
Can I ask, what's that issue? I mean, are you worried that you're going to overfill one bin?
Well,
Or is it that you really need more than one location? Because in certain respects, the school is as handy a place as any place.
Right.
For anybody in town who wants to recycle anything to
Right.
go. So if you could put 2 bins at the school,
Right.
you know, that solved the problem. I think that would be maybe preferable.
I mean, we were discussing earlier, it might make sense to have a bin somewhere else, just to make the community feel like this isn't just a school effort. I mean, although the money generated will be going to the school, it's more of a community effort. And so maybe, you know, people who don't have kids in town and they don't go to the school, you know, it might be easier if it's somewhere else, like, I don't know, the library or here, or I don't know where else. But I guess the point is just to make it feel like a community effort and make everyone feel like they can contribute. And
because we don't like to be known as just another box in town. You know, we
Right.
want to be a program for the community, and working with the PTOs to spread awareness. And we could try, you know, the 2 at the school. I'm open to, you know, I like to say we can tailor a program to fit the needs of the community.
So Tim, who requested, I mean, how did the 3 bins that are there now get there?
Yeah.
I know 2 are Salvation Army,
Right.
1 is
Yeah,
something else.
I don't know the history of it, I'm sure over time, you know, one asked and then another and then another, and Gary could, you know, would know that for certain, how that came to be.
Mhm.
You know, I can ask him how that, you know, what the origin of, maybe we
I
don't
use it
need.
because very
for-
often, much of my stuff, if it's ready to be given up, you know, it's because it doesn't owe me anything anymore. But if there were a place where I knew it was going to be turned into, you know,
Seat cushions.
Yeah.
seat cushions or paper or whatever, I
When they
would
go
be
to
less,
school,
you
yeah.
know,
Yep.
I'd be more inclined to bag it up and give it away.
well, and the interesting thing is too, it's raising money for our local school, which is different from any of the other bins, which don't.
So, I don't believe that we have any authority to approve anything going at the high school, so I think you'll have to talk to the school committee.
I'm working with
The high
Concord
school.
Carlisle. The Concord Carlisle High School is going to be part of the Concord program.
They're already
So-
on board.
They're out.
Oh, I thought you meant you wanted to put it at the Carlisle School.
Yes, in addition, but
So that's a
she's,
different school committee.
The Concord Carlisle.
The Carlisle
right.
School.
So Jim O'Shea knows about the program, you know, and is an
Lori
advocate.
Hunter, I've worked with in Concord, who's also
Yeah.
Concord Carlisle, right?
Yeah, but that's a different regional school district than the Carlisle.
Correct,
Right.
sure, no, I'm aware of that, and I have the approval for Concord Carlisle, because we're coming into the ideal time to launch the program with back to school. You know, all the information can go home to the parents with back to school. People tend to change over their closets with back to school. And to be honest, I mean, I've been with Bay State actually 6 years this week, and I knew nothing about textile recycling before, and it's amazing how much is out there.
Mhm.
You know, and it's hard to think about, you know, my closet, I don't have that much, but, you know, collectively, it's amazing the tonnage that's out there.
Okay. So I do think that you'll need to talk to the
School committee.
Carlisle School Committee.
Okay,
Because we don't have any authority to approve a bin to go on the school property.
This was from
Right.
Carlisle School.
Yeah, I thought Emily
And
said
I
that,
got- Okay.
Jim
in an email
O'Shea.
yeah, that you had approached the school committee?
Well, so you, I don't know
They
if
thought
Emily's
one
approached
was-
the school committee. Sarah, do you know?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We've talked to Jim.
Yeah, so
We've been
Sarah
into-
Fukovich and yourself
Yep.
have talked with Jim
Correct.
O'Shea. And he was interested and just wanted to know more about the logistics of where, you know, the boxes could go in town.
Okay.
Oh, okay, well,
So-
that clears things up.
Yeah,
Oh,
just,
see, I was under the impression that they'd already talked with, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely.
it sounds
I'm
like
sure.
they've talked to the
Yeah. at least Jim.
CCHS school committee,
Right, but, and then Jim, but yeah.
and Jim.
So
yeah.
then, yeah.
But I think,
The school
yeah, I
committee
think
Mhm.
the school committee, the Carlisle School
Yeah.
Committee is going to
Right.
have to
Yeah.
weigh in on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
We have no authority to
Right.
say, yes, go ahead and put something on the school grounds.
Right, but in terms of
We would be the
somewhere else
transfer
in
station.
town, you
But
know.
really, the transfer station is the only place I can think of that, is kind of town property that is a place that is accessible and lots of people go to. I mean, there's the library.
You don't
but
think
I
the library?
I'm not sure we want to have the bin at the library.
We could have one here in the back of the parking lot,
Right.
possibly.
Such a
Yeah.
big parking lot, yeah.
Yeah, I actually.
Not when we need it.
But yeah, no, but I actually agree with Alan. I think, you know, because of the mass of people that go to the transfer station, and like you said, those Goodwill bins are always overflowing. You know, I think that's a great place to start. And then ultimately too, I think if, you know, we realize, yeah, you guys pick up, it's clean, it's efficient,
Mhm.
and Goodwill continues to be as inefficient, if you will, as they are, because sometimes it's just a mess. And then you
Right.
see stuff gets
It was a
rained on.
mess. It was a
Right.
mess.
Yeah, and it regularly is. And I mean, we
Today.
can, right, I mean, and we can talk with Gary about it to see if that's a regular thing or whatnot, but I think, you know, I think that would be the ideal place to start. And then if it isn't getting the volume, we can figure out another place, or,
It's where people go when they're thinking recycle.
Yes.
right, yeah.
Mhm, that's true.
And so the Board of Selectmen would give the approval for the transfer station, is that my understanding? Okay.
Yeah, we would do the
Yeah.
transfer
And I
station.
think that's why we're here
I
tonight,
think
to.
I would like to see that money going to our school committee, to our school community. Although I understand CCHS is a part of our school committee, we're a very small part, and I'd rather see whatever we're contributing comes much more directly to us.
I think it
So I would
does.
like
right?
to
It will,
Yeah,
it will.
It comes
Oh,
directly
yeah.
from Carlisle PTO.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
I
yeah, we'll go
understood it
right
was
to our
going
school.
back to the PTO of whomever you were dealing with, which was CCHS.
I think
No,
they're
this
doing
is
a
Car-
separate project.
Yeah.
It's almost like
I just
Concord
wanted to-
CCHS
and
has been
Carlisle,
approved by
totally separate.
CCHS,
Yeah.
and this
Okay.
is a separate
So
project.
this
Because
is for-
CCHS is in Concord, so they're part of the Concord School District and all of those schools, and then this is separate, and all the money would come to our school, to our
All right, I
PTO.
just want to make sure
Yes.
that that
Yeah.
is what we're still talking about.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say that we should be doing any authorization unless and until we understand that the school committee has.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah.
So provisionally, I would say, yeah, we could support another
I think I also wanna
location
hear
in
from
town.
Gary as well.
Right, yeah,
Yes,
we should
and-
check with
yeah.
Gary.
Before we approve something else going into the transfer station.
Yeah.
He's in charge of the transfer station?
Gary Davis
Yes,
is.
Davis,
Director of
okay.
Public Works.
Public Works.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind chatting.
Yeah, I'll
with
follow up, Gary.
Gary. Ask him how often there's clothing just sitting outside of the bins.
Or I'd be interested to, like, the weight that you get. Do you get money from those other bins at all, or?
No idea.
Yeah.
Probably
I know we
not.
get lots of
I- I-
plastic bags.
Goodwill, I'm
hanging
sure
out.
not.
No,
Definitely
Goodwill.
not to the school, if anything,
I
yeah.
don't think the town gets any either.
No, probably not.
What we do is we avoid tipping fees
Yes.
for people putting it, not
Mhm.
putting it in the trash.
And it looks like it goes to Salvation Army and Goodwill, because
Yeah.
there's two Salvation
Mhm.
Army and is it the other one's Goodwill? I know it's
I think
different.
so,
I think it's
yeah.
Goodwill, yeah.
Yeah, and Big Brother, Big Sister's pretty active in town.
Yeah.
But they
They
come
call
in,
for pickup.
they come to your house.
Mhm.
But the school sounds like the ideal. The communication system is there. Everybody comes, you know, that has the volume comes there. That'd be,
Okay.
that'd work.
Is there anything I can do to help follow up with Gary as far as information?
Do you
and-
want to explain that there's no cost to the town?
Yeah, there's
I mean,
no,
They provide all the equipment, all the,
the box is cross-branded for the community, so you'll notice on the Dedham box there on the front, you know, you'll have your Carlisle
Logo.
logo,
the Husky.
so people can identify and.
Yeah, no, I think we'll follow up with Gary. I think
Yeah.
the key thing will be getting the approval from the school committee.
Right.
And then,
And
you know,
then
we can chat about it and, once we
Okay.
You've got the go-ahead from the school committee. I think the way school committee works is if you bring it to them,
Right.
they're not gonna vote it on that meeting, it's gonna be in the following meeting.
Oh, so it might not be ready for back to school.
Oh, we
No.
can,
I don't know.
Mary?
Oh, it is.
Yes, please.
The Carlisle School Committee's next meeting is until September 12th anyway,
Oh,
and this has not been brought to the school committee.
Oh, okay. September.
It's been brought to the regional school committee
Regional, yeah.
and the Concord School Committee. There's 3 school districts.
Okay.
although we have been in communication with Jim O'Shea about it, the superintendent, so, okay.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
We might put it on the agenda. Okay.
Thank you very
Any
much.
Thank
other
you.
questions, or everyone's listening?
Would you like your thing,
Sure, if you're not gonna use it, we can always reuse it, yep.
seen it?
Thank you very much.
Waster.
My contact information's all in the back, so you're all set with this?
Great,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
For the minutes.
Okay, so we need to
Confusing.
jump to appointments. I want to hold off on Ferns until 7:30.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Is that a public hearing?
it is, it is.
So I need to open a public
It
hearing.
started early, yeah.
So let's jump to appointments. And Kate, I didn't track all those names. The appointments that are in the package, are those all appointments that we should be making? For registrar and,
For registrar, yeah. We need to talk about the other committee, though.
I was talking about the people who had emailed
Registrars.
you saying that they didn't want to be on.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Sure.
present that?
Sure, if you, well, let's do what's in front of us, and then if you wouldn't mind. So this is actually a vote to withdraw. Are these the two?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, well, we can withdraw it. They've declined them, so I don't know that we need to withdraw it. But we can do that with the belt along with the suspenders.
Yeah, did they,
You could rescind. I would vote to rescind the appointments.
okay, or just
Even though
accept
they-
their resignation?
Yeah, they were never sworn in, so they never,
Okay.
Yeah.
so technically they're still vacant. So you could appoint a new person.
It would
Yeah,
seem
I
like
don't
we-
like the idea of rescinding somehow. I much prefer to.
Or do we have these like hanging out there, like we can't appoint
Well-
anybody, and they just don't exist
They're
anymore?
vacant.
They weren't eligible to be sworn into the position, so they,
It just
they
goes
were not
away.
effective. Yeah, I think they just kind of,
So we can just do new
Disappear,
ones?
yeah.
Okay. So I guess we only have to do the second part of this motion then.
Yeah, okay, so I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the vote to appoint Ann Gibbs to the Board of Registrars with a term expire on June 30th, 2021.
Second?
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay.
Happy to explain what happened if anybody
Sure,
cares.
but I think just because it's confusing, it might be good.
Yeah, I think, I do want to explain it.
Yep, please do.
So, we actually have, there's supposed to be 4 registrars, 2 from each of the major parties. One always is the town clerk, and she should be unenrolled because she's to step in if there's, for some reason, some imbalance. She can step into either of those 2 parties. Kathy DeVivo Vash has been an election marshal. She was very well aware of all the things that needed to be done, so we thought she'd be a good candidate. Never, because we have a new town clerk, and because we haven't done this for several years, and because all the town committees, the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee didn't remember how to do this either. We went ahead and asked Kathy DeVivo, Ash, or you guys did anyway, and Lee Means, who both expressed interest in the position, to become town registrars. Then when we went to swear them in, we realized they weren't registered in any party, and they did not want to register
okay.
in a party. And so that's why we don't have anybody filling the position now. It was just kind of a, you know,
Okay.
well-meaning, you know, let's get this done because we really need to get these registrars because we're having an election on September 4th. So, in the meantime, the Democratic Town Committee had voted already to nominate Ann Gibbs for the Democratic slot. We already have another one, Cynthia Sweppy, who's going to be ending at the end of next year. She's part of the Democrats. And now, from what I understand, the Republican Party has been requested to nominate somebody. If they don't, at that point, we could then revisit having somebody else that's unregistered.
Mhm.
But we can't until we've made that effort.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Makes sense now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Like a Chinese fire drill there for.
Anybody else have anything they want to say? No.
Just that they're not unregistered, just unenrolled.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's right, I didn't mean to say unregistered there. Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. And that is the only appointment. No.
Is the fire chief committee?
No.
Assistant
We're gonna do
treasurer.
that during the
Yeah,
other.
this is
The board,
Yeah, you have a letter from the treasurer,
yeah.
who was out of town.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
You will recall the new position of Assistant Treasurer Collector was created in the budget that was passed at town meeting. Position was advertised, there were 18 applicants. The 18. Yeah, the treasurer interviewed 6 and is recommending that the board appoint Kathleen Hens to the position of Assistant Treasurer Collector pending a positive background and a credit check, which is normal in the, you know, for a financial position, you would want to do a financial background on the individual. We don't anticipate any issues, but if the board would make that appointment contingent upon that background check,
Okay, is
Would be
there a
appreciated.
motion to appoint Catherine Hens to the position of Assistant Treasurer
I move-
Collector effective August 22nd, 2018?
I move that the board appoint Kathleen Hens to the position of Assistant Treasurer Collector effective August 27th, 2018, pending a positive background check and credit check.
Second?
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Look forward to walking over to staff and having
2 more minutes.
Carrie have some
It's been
time to
done.
get some things done.
time for a cemetery deed or two, if
Okay,
you're up for it.
yep, let's go ahead and do that.
Because we've got to fill some time.
Just make the motion.
I know, I know.
Can you please go home?
Oh, gosh.
I'd love to. I haven't slept in.
All right. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Lori W. Engel at 104 Nichols Lane at Green Cemetery, Lot D 107, Graves 1 and 2, with deed 716.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And move that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Lori W. Engel, 104 Nichols Lane at Green Cemetery, Lot D 108, Graves 1 and 2, with deed 717.
They are both the same.
Same person. Oh, it is supposed to be. My
They are
apologies.
supposed to be, okay.
Different lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Do we need to sign off on both of these? Do they need signature?
Yes, they will meet. Okay.
Am I missing the town administrator's report? Or don't you have one?
I do have one.
Oh, well,
I do have one, yeah. Have it?
Time or the whole?
La-di-da.
Number 8.
Was it 8? It's your wing.
Okay, I am going to open the public hearing for Fern's Country Store, transfer section 15, package store license, carry-in license. Hello.
Good evening.
You can,
on up.
just go ahead and sit right up here.
Yeah.
And if you could just state your name and address, and then we can jump right in.
Matthew Herwick, 157 Berry Corner Lane.
Jennifer Herwick, same 157 Berry Corner Lane.
Great. Okay, so, this is, what's the transfer part of it?
We have to open a public hearing?
I did.
It's the transfer of the package store license to the new owners.
Okay, so it's not
That's
a
what
new
it-
license,
It's not a new,
transferring it from.
exactly,
Okay,
right.
and that's it? We're not, it's no different dates or anything?
I don't think
Yeah,
they
there is
anticipate making any changes at this point to the operation.
Same dates, same times of operation as the previous license was.
Okay, so,
Same date, same time, same operation.
Chief's here. Any questions?
This has no effect on the site plan approval because it's not a change of use. It's just a
Nope.
transfer of license.
Yeah. The
Okay.
state likes to see the site plan for any kind of a change or, transfer or new license.
so this
So we-
is just the standard package?
It's the same, there are really two approvals. There's the transfer of the package store license, as was stated, in the board's own carry-in license, which provides for the BYOB. That's also before you tonight, so.
And then the carry-in liquor license?
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
yep.
And the police chief, who is here, I believe, has already signed off on this.
Two chiefs and the building commissioner
Korean
signed
liquor
off on
license
that.
application.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Is there anybody from the
From the public.
No? Yes, does anybody here from the public like to discuss this? Okay,
I think so.
I move to close the public.
last chance, because we're about ready to close the public hearing. All right, go
I
ahead.
move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay.
I move to approve the transfer of license pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 15 of Carlisle Center Ventures LLC, doing business as Fern's Country Store, Larry Bearfield, manager to Berry Barn LLC, doing business as Fern's Country Store, Matthew Herwick, manager, located at 8 Lowell Street, Carlisle, Mass. 01741, for the retail sale of wine and malt beverages, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sundays, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. The issuance of this license shall be subject to the applicant first obtaining host liquor liability insurance coverage.
Second?
Okay. Any further discussion?
Actually, do you have the host liability insurance coverage yet?
I usually get that one.
Oh, you get
Before
that.
I release the license to them.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I move to grant a carry-in liquor license for Berry Barn LLC, Matthew Herwick, manager, doing business as Fern's Country Store, consistent with the terms and conditions of the town's carry-in liquor policy, and during the days and hours of operation stated in the application filed with this board. Said license shall be granted through December 31st, 2018, and must be applied for to be renewed concurrently with the applicant's common victualler's license annual renewal.
Second.
Okay, so it looks like we'll see you again on December 31st.
Very good.
Great.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. It has been transferred to you.
Wonderful.
You want any copies of your work?
I have copies. We're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Buy wine or something.
You want to jump to the town administrator's report?
Sure. First item in my report has to do with the Deer Committee Revolving Fund. When the board voted to establish the revolving fund last time, we failed to put a limit on the amount of receipts that the fund can hold.
Why would we want to do that?
That's right. So, at this point, I understand that there are going to be 18 permits issued for $30 apiece. I'm recommending that you set the limit at $1,000. That's about $600 or so for, expansion, if you will. Or that doesn't. There's no harm in setting the limit higher. It just means they wouldn't have to come back at a future date to increase the limit if the program grew substantially. So there's a suggested.
What's the drawback? I mean, what's the reason for having the limit is what?
They could, that's the limit on the receipts that the fund can take in and spend. So if they wanted to, in a future year, sell 25 or 30 licenses at $30 apiece, they could do so. Right now, I don't think they're going to approach that because they're limiting it to.
But do they have to have a limit on the fund? Is that a
The law requires that an upper limit be established, right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what happens when you miss a meeting.
That's right. What?
Okay, I move the board recommend that the town accountant create a new fiscal year 19 revolving fund pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, that always slays me, to receive no more than $1,000 in receipts from the sale of deer bow hunting permits for the purpose of paying expenses relating to the administration of said program under the supervision of the Conservation Commission.
Second?
Okay, I have a couple questions. Why is it an FY19 revolving fund? Do we have to recreate this fund every year?
At town meeting annually, all the revolving funds are reauthorized.
Okay.
Not very efficient, but that's the way the state makes the town do it. So.
Okay. Crazy. Okay. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Let's just jump right into this next one.
Okay. As I had notified the board last week, it's very likely that we're going to have a fall special town meeting. The Concord-Carlisle Regional School Committee requested 2 warrant articles that are on the Concord town meeting warrant for October 1st. And I know there's a member of the Regional School Committee here tonight that can explain those requests probably better than I can. But by the Regional School Committee taking the act of authorizing the debt, it triggers a 60-day clock, if you will. The towns of Concord and Carlisle, the member towns of the district, have 60 days to call a town meeting to vote disapproval of the debt. If they fail to do so, the debt becomes effective. They also can vote in favor of it and indicate their support in that fashion, but the law is set up to give the communities the opportunity to disapprove the debt. So Concord's town meeting is October 1st. I've been in contact with the town clerk and the town moderator, who feels that he more than likely will be here the first week in October, so we probably could have a special town meeting shortly after Concord's. The school's available on October 2nd, as we've put out the reservation on that for the auditorium. So there are two articles that, for some capital projects at the high school, and then the second article is for a feasibility study. I know Mary is here from the school committee, perhaps can explain, what the regional school district is anticipating.
Would you be willing to come on up? And
Yeah, that might be the.
Yeah, come on up and.
I came more to listen tonight. I wasn't really prepared. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm Mary Storrs. I'm one of the Carlisle reps to the Regional School Committee. I think, are the articles in your packet the ones we voted last week?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
So I'm happy to answer any questions. We approved 2 warrant articles, one for some very specific projects that we estimate to be at about $100,000 worth of work. Excuse me. And the second is for the feasibility study, as Tim explained. Since we voted, we actually had a meeting this afternoon, a subcommittee meeting, and we've gotten 3 estimates for this feasibility study. We were hoping it would come in significantly under the 200,000, but it's looking between 150 and 200,000, but closer to 200 than we'd like. So we think that's a pretty good number to go with. We thought we'd come in a bit lower.
Could you tell us a little about the scope of this feasibility study? Because it just says a feasibility study, engineering study for the high school building and campus.
Yes.
I mean, it's a brand new
No.
high school, so I would just like to know.
Sure.
What we're looking
No,
at.
absolutely. Parking, as if you haven't heard the news, right? Parking is an issue at the high school, so one of the items on that feasibility study will be parking. I'm just trying to think of what the other things are. You caught me
Uses
off
for the
guard.
landfill area.
Yeah, so
Roadway and lighting improvements.
the roadway and lighting improvements, which is the article that we had thought we would get on the Springtown meeting, and we pulled back, because whatever we want to do on that campus needs design work. There are a lot of limitations because of the Water Conservancy District, lots of limitations on what we can do on that site. And we need an engineer to help us figure out what we can do and cannot do. Parking is probably the highest priority, and the parking and paving and lighting. And then we established a campus advisory committee last year, and we had a lot of public input from Concord and Carlisle townspeople, and the students and all kinds of folks. And we prioritized a list of things that I would describe as very nice to have. They ranged everything from an outdoor classroom space to an ice rink. Varying levels of reality, I guess. But we are including those list of items, the ones that bubble to the top as the higher priority. We're including those on our list for the engineers in the feasibility study to kind of say, not next week, not next year even, but down the road, can we put this project and that project and still accommodate parking and et cetera? And how do we juggle all those things? So we need an engineer to help us figure that out. Does that answer your question?
My understanding is that originally, the bonded amount included additional things that weren't done when the project was completed, but that we knew that there'd be a need for more money. And we weren't, except for parking perhaps, we weren't too sure what that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But in the interim, that approval for that extra bonded money has expired.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to come back to the well, basically, and say,
Right.
we knew this was gonna happen, we tried to plan for it initially, but we ran out of time.
Yep.
And so we have to come back to you. Do you think that this is gonna be well-received, from what you,
I only have anecdotal evidence. I think it'll be a very mixed reaction. Like I said, regardless of what we want to do on that campus, and we have paving improvements that we feel that we need to do. That roadway is a mess, some lighting enhancements. We can't do that without an engineering study. Now, it could be a smaller engineering study for sure, but the parking is an issue that we would really like to address. We had probably 5 people from the town of Concord at a meeting today. Police, from police, water and sewer, natural resources, planning, design, like all of these people that weigh in on what needs to happen there and what can and cannot. It's very, very particular requirements. I'm going to say it again. We need an engineering study to work through this.
And so,
So-
the regional school committee has already voted to approve this.
Mhm.
And so that means it will happen unless we have a town meeting.
Well,
That would-
if Concord,
Concord approves
the
it.
town of Concord,
Well, no.
right.
If
No.
they.
If neither town disapproves it, then it constructively is approved. But
Right,
both,
so
both
if-
towns
if
are
Concord-
likely.
If Concord approves it, and for some reason Carlisle didn't want it, we would not have the opportunity to say no if we didn't have a town meeting.
Exactly.
Right.
And Concord, right, so the Concord town meeting is scheduled, so there will be a yay or a nay, right?
Mhm. But if it's a yay and we want it to be a nay, that voice isn't heard.
Right. So we,
Their meeting is scheduled when?
which meeting?
Their meeting in fall.
Concord, October 1st.
Oh, the town meeting on
Monday, October 1st.
Yeah.
And then we have to, that starts our clock, is that what you said? Or when does that 60-day clock start?
It was started the night the school committee voted to incur the debt. So I think the clock expires October 6th or 7th, something like that. It's 60 days from when they met to vote.
That Carlisle has to hold town meeting?
Both towns have to. Oh, it's eminently doable. I mean, both towns could have an October 1st and a second town meeting, and that, and we're well within the 60 days. For your purposes, you'd have to, well, the cost is probably $2,500, thereabouts. Most of it's for the PA guy, but it's, and legal notices and that sort of thing, so a few $1,000s.
Okay.
But I would say the board would have to make a decision to call the special town meeting no later than your next scheduled meeting on the 28th, to call for the meeting and probably close the warrant that night with the articles that we've got.
Right, and
That'll
we
give you a
had
little
talked
more than a
about
month.
having potentially some other things on there as far as cleanup of some bylaws and things like that.
Right, if you're going to have a town meeting, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
an
I mean,
opportunity to.
We can talk about whether or not it makes sense to get other stuff done.
Mhm.
But we don't need to
Right.
make that decision tonight.
You don't need to do, no, this is just
It seems to me
a
like we
heads up.
should have a town meeting.
Yeah.
Well, it would be nice to take control of the decision, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To the extent we can, right?
But if they do vote negatively on October 1st, we don't have.
We
to
wouldn't
vote.
move this article. Right. These two are, well,
Well, the debt wouldn't
two
wouldn't be
articles.
approved, it'd be disapproved, yeah. So you couldn't go forward. If either town voted no, you couldn't go forward with,
Either town.
yeah. They both have to
Yeah.
either vote yes or not vote no. Not
So-
vote at all.
you're asking very good questions that I'm not prepared to answer tonight. We are working, we've got 5 meetings in the month of August. We're working to gather hard information, give the facts, and educate the community. We're just getting started. Very, absolutely valid questions.
Is there a real need for us to have a meeting in October without this issue?
Normally, we don't have a fall town meeting.
Right, but I mean,
We don't have any
knowing
business
what's
that,
bubbling or, you know, is there, does anyone think there would be a need if it weren't for this issue?
Ask the planning board if they have any
master plan related.
master plan, you know.
Yeah,
bylaw.
more than likely, I would say no, but
Because, I mean,
Since
we
you're
could
meeting.
cancel our meeting at the last minute and save the PA guys fees and.
If this were the only article.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What kind of flexibility?
I mean,
do we
there's-
really have?
I mean, there are two separate articles, they're unrelated, so, I mean, in theory, Concord could pass one and not the other, you know, could go any which way.
Plan on the town meeting.
Yeah, I think we should, yeah.
Yeah.
October 2nd?
Good people. That looks to be, it's an open date. The moderator's checking his schedule. He thinks he's available that week, so.
Okay.
Is that a Tuesday?
That would be a Tuesday. That'd be the night after Concord,
We'll,
so
we'll chat about it if anything else should go on there, since getting everybody together, maybe
same
put more,
cost, yeah.
more on it for the.
Yeah, I frankly, I would be a little bit concerned about trying to get a quorum if this were the only thing on it.
Yeah.
That's always a problem.
Okay, we'll figure out something else to get on there.
Something really good. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for coming up here, Mary.
How the
Unexpected.
tax rate's gonna go up back in.
Something to do with dogs. or
All right.
Right, yes, that's a good one.
All right, let's move, if you don't mind, Tim, I'm gonna skip this last one here, and actually, is it long? No, we're gonna skip it and go to the fire department, because we're late.
Okay.
Fire chief search process. Chat about the discussion of the process, discussion of full-time position.
Have a nice vacation?
I had a great vacation. Montana looks great. It's nice. It's good to be home. It's a good week.
You got the
So,
trick chair there, I see.
I have several members of our committee here. I think we would just like to talk, I'm just speaking for the group, and if I misspeak, please correct me for those that were there. But the search kicked off on August 3rd. We had a nice meeting. There are members of the committee were there, as well as one citizen who observed, Mark Way, who is here with us in this room and who submitted a letter to become the citizen representative. We spent the majority of the time talking about how to get the right person. We think that Carlisle is a fantastic opportunity. It's an amazing town. It's a fantastic fire department, and in working toward that, we talked about the right person. And as a next step, we talked about the vendors that had applied for assistance in that, and there was consensus that we were going to use MRI to help the committee with the search for the fire chief. And in fact, we're going to meet with MRI next Monday morning at 8 a.m. An important consideration that the committee discussed was whether this fire chief should be a full-time person or a part-time person. And that is something that the committee requests the board's action on to provide direction for us. We support the full-time fire chief concept, and not necessarily unanimous by the group, and I'll say that out, but I think the full-time fire chief was what we're asking for, and we would look for direction from you for that. So that's one thing we need direction on. The next thing that's kind of happening as we go down the tracks, tomorrow night we're meeting, there's going to be a brainstorming meeting with members of the fire department for them to provide input on both the process and most specifically what they would like to see from the fire chief. So we're really looking forward to that opportunity to hear from the members about their thoughts. And the last thing I guess I bring up that requires action is the appointment of that citizen rep. So we do ask for the board's consideration of providing a citizen rep to the committee. And just one of the things that came up is taking a look at this process and looking at when Chief Flannery wants to go. I think there was universal support for really trying to have someone on board. Taking a look at the proposals, we feel that December 1st is a fairly reasonable goal. It's going to require some hustling. We're really going to have to stay after it. The committee, I think, was universally committed to staying after this and getting the right person. And we really have an 11-week timeline with the vendor to provide the names that might be considered finalists, so to speak. And that's kind of what's going on with the process as an overview. Anything I missed? Anything we
Just a couple of other quick things, one of which was, it's a minor detail, is to make sure that in our dealings with MRI, because of concerns around transparency and confidentiality, that we're explicit in our instructions to them. There's been issues with us in the past and with other towns, just to make sure that we're setting the rules up early in that process. And the other is that although we would love to have someone on December 1st, as Chief Fisher said, it is a very tight process, because they talk about 11 weeks from their being engaged to having, it's reasonable to have a list that puts us in early November, which means we've got to really hustle, because then we start getting into the holiday season and difficulty to schedule candidates. So, but again, it would be nice. The one other thing that was raised, I hate to put Chief Flannery on this, is the transition. And although Chief Flannery is retiring on December 31st, is to find out if there's availability for him to help whoever is brought, whoever takes that position in the transition. Because it's going to be, normally we would have 6 months or more of transition. This is going to be a month or less. So I don't know if he's open to it. So that's something that should be explored.
Mm-hmm. So let's chat about full-time, part-time. It would be also, it would be good to, kind of feel out the rest of the, have this a part of the discussion with the rest of the firefighters tomorrow.
Yeah, so I guess, I think that I think we agreed we're going to put this on the table, but that a lot of the information might come from them. So I guess I was misspeaking if I was asking for direction for that tonight. Like, I'm not looking for a vote tonight. I think probably the next time. But I think that will weigh heavily on what the approach is.
Mm-hmm.
But as you remember from being there, we do want to have the firefighters' input, the current firefighters' input on that.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have anything that, a strong opinion they want to state prior to this going to the fire department? Or, okay, and we also have a motion to appoint Mark Way.
I move that Mark Way be appointed as a citizen member of the Fire Chief Search Committee. We have an official.
Are you Mark?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I should have introduced him.
Move that the
Stuck
Board of
up there. I thought you were behind me. You should be a cop.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve Mark H. Way of 307 Acton Street, Carlisle, to serve on the Fire Chief Search Committee.
Second. Okay, first and second. Any further discussion?
I just have one question. I assume that you were happy with the time commitment of the position of citizen at large? Well, require, okay. Because that wasn't your letter. Great.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
If you
Thank
just
you for
stop
volunteering.
by at the town clerk's office and get sworn in.
Anytime?
Anytime.
That
Yeah.
she's
Obviously,
there.
when it's open.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Would make it make sense.
2 to 3 in the morning would be.
Yeah.
Great.
There was another, I just wanted to mention, there was somebody else who was also interested in that position, but I think we should hold them. Also had a really nice looking resume. Mr. Way actually went to the meeting and
Mhm.
Also has a fantastic resume, and thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you.
Question. As a quote committee, or I thought it was a working group, but there may not be a distinction, in terms of open meeting law.
Yes.
And what needs to be posted, because a lot of this needs to not, as we know, has to be in confidentiality. The list of candidates until finalists have to be held in held confidential and so on. So what are the rules that we have to play by?
Good question.
This is the committee that has been appointed by the Board of Selectmen, so by the definition, it's an open meeting law situation. And we posted the initial meeting, we posted tomorrow night and next Monday. At a certain point, the committee will be permitted to meet in executive session when they're talking about candidates and so forth. So a lot of the actual work of the committee will be in executive session. It won't be public until after, the process. It becomes a public record sort of after the fact. But so it is an open meeting law committee, and we're complying with that, with the postings.
How are we complying with it from a minutes perspective?
Just gonna say.
No, I did minutes for the first meeting, so I'll bring those next Monday, I guess. Jen, yeah, she can, right. We did, we do have to keep minutes in addition to posting,
Okay,
and we
but
will.
since you're on it, you'll make sure that happens?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
The other
So it's
one I
good
raised about
question.
Tomorrow night, it's kind of that iffy one because it was intended, I understand open meeting law, it's intended to be kind of a chance for the firefighters to have their input, and I doubt anyone else is going to show up anyway.
Right.
But it's the sort of thing, if a lot of other people show up, I suspect that would really have, that would tamp down any of the discussion.
That's already been posted, right?
It's been posted. We looked at the exemptions under executive session. It didn't really fit any of them, so we thought it was wiser to post it as an open meeting and hope that, members of the fire department are largely who shows up and participates,
That's all.
with
I
the
mean,
committee.
The other component of the open meetings law is limits what can be discussed among the search committee members outside of the meeting, and that's very important.
So for those of us who have been as close to this as others, what's the most compelling reason for a full-time chief?
Well, you're asking me, and some of the points that were brought up. Number one, I think it was recommended for the report that was prepared for you folks, right? That was. And I'll speak myself. I think everybody actually had a bit different perspective on this. I think from myself, what I said I saw is that Chief Flannery, I can't imagine that he could work any more on this. I've talked to him days, nights, multiple times every week. I think that this town has gotten a bargain with him for what you've gotten. I think you've gotten a full-time person, my personal opinion, a full-time person at part-time pay. I think that he in particular and other members of the fire department put in a ton of hours. And I think it's the right thing to do. I think that that's so you're hearing the world according to John. I think it's time for this department. It's time for the fire department to have somebody declared full-time. Am I missing anything? I think that was brought up by several members talking about the extraordinary efforts that the leadership of the fire department currently provides.
Having regular availability, which is an issue, and just the size of the job, looking at what the chief does, I mean, he squeezes a lot into his 20 hours, but even with that, just the pure administrative load and district loads and all the other fire chief relationships and so on consumes that, and the amount of time that's then left for dealing with personnel and so on is limited. And obviously, as we're going through the challenges, and as Chief Flannery, recruiting and retaining and promoting people, and whatever's going to be happening with the building, and then whatever's going to be happening with the advanced life support, there's going to be a lot of big projects that are going to be on the table, and if the administrative time alone eats up all of their time, then working on these larger projects will be difficult.
I think not to pluck something out, but I thought one of the things that was mentioned as a possibility in the report was combine the chief and the deputy chief into one, and just from working with people in those roles, I thought that was not correct either. I really think that the deputy, my personal opinion is leave that deputy spot alone and hire a full-time fire chief. Keep that position, if nothing else, in place And let's just focus on doing the full-time fire chief and not futzing with the upper echelon, and let the new person in the fire department figure out how that's gonna work.
Would you anticipate, with the changes of the building that have been proposed, would you anticipate that the facilities manager person would offload a lot of that kind of burden from the chief on a day-to-day basis and project management basis?
To be determined, I mean, we don't have evidence of that yet, so, you know, there's the day, what I had thought on the facility manager, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that has to happen, but on top of that, there's the large projects. Perhaps after projects are started, some of the project management or whatever, I know would be outsourced anyway, but would be possible, but again, just the planning over, you know, of what the department's gonna look like in the next 10 years and the needs of the department, to say nothing of any of the temporary space, to say nothing of the fact that the fuel storage, you know, becomes non-compliant in January. There's some large projects that could consume, you know, I forget how many hours a week of the facilities manager or allocated to the fire department, but that can consume someone at least half time, if not more, and I know we're not allocated half of their time.
I think also, you know, just having met with Chief Flannery a lot over the past couple of years, you know, I just want to reiterate what Chief Fisher was saying. I mean, it's so much extra work that he and Deputy Chief White have been putting in order to make this work. So even if you say, okay, we'll offload some of the facilities management, I think what you're offloading is work that's not even contained within the amount of hours that are already there. You know, I know that, you know, I've heard some people say, well, this is just the first step to a full-time fire department. I think this is the best step to prevent a full-time fire department. I think that, you know, having a full-time chief who can have the time to really try to get the volunteers and build that team and really have the time to manage all the aspects of the fire department, rather than throwing the balls in the air and trying to grab the ones that are glass before they hit the ground. You know, as long as we're in that mode, we're never really gonna be able to move forward and make things better. That's just my opinion, and having, you know, spoken with Chief Flannery for, you know, a few years. I definitely want to hear what the rest of the fire department has to say. Unfortunately, I'm out of town tomorrow. But I'm a strong advocate of it being a full-time chief.
I think it's also important to remember this position also is the emergency management director. And at any one time, that can be a huge time commitment, virtually more than a full-time commitment. And you know, all the town officials participate in that, but that's a big responsibility, and it's one that increasingly requires someone who really knows what they're doing.
The other important part of this position of being a full-time person is, unlike David's been chief for the last 10 years, previous to his being the chief, he did calls every day. And the staffing in this town is such during the weekdays is that we need a chief, needs being replaced, to do the calls. That as a firefighter and an EMT, they can hit the street and do the street, because the coverage in this town, and Bert can tell you, Bert is fallen to my position, and he's doing it every day, everything. And Bert is not going to be here for more than greater than a year either, so you need to get someone that provides daytime coverage, just like the chief of police. It has to be there every day. Because he's going to do the job, never mind all the administrative job, he's going to do the street job too, whether he likes it or not.
Should be a fun night tomorrow night.
Any other questions for the committee?
What time is your meeting?
We're going at 7.
And it's here?
Nope, it's the fire department.
Home court advantage.
I guess.
But it's so far away from here.
There's one other thing I feel like the committee did talk about, I'm sure it'll appear in the minutes, is that I think we should be postured to pay this person an appropriate salary. And that's kind of an early thought from the committee. I don't think, anyone on the committee is in favor of hiring someone and then having to do this another year, using Carlisle as a stepping stone to another position, that we would really like to get someone who's here as a fire chief. So it just came up, and it came up frequently, and I think it's something to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very
Chief.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Let's jump to number 3 on the town administrator's report.
Okay, number 3, I put together the very preliminary draft town meeting timeline, looking forward to the 2019 annual town meeting. I think I recall the town meeting date was April 29th and
29th on the, yes.
and May 7th for the town election. Both of those dates work for the town clerk, who would run the election, and the moderator basically blocks off the months of April and May on his schedule, so that's a good date for him as well. So this is,
So is that the week after April vacation?
yes,
That's
Yes.
the Monday after April vacation.
right, because vacation week always encompasses Patriots' Day, which is usually the 16th to the 18th, 19th, and there.
So this would be a full week after that.
Right, right.
It's not the Monday
It's pretty
after,
much
it's the Monday.
the same schedule we used last year.
I'd be worried about it being the Monday
Right
after.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Again, this isn't,
Yeah.
finalized.
Double check that and let's just make sure.
And Concord's town meeting was 3 weeks prior to ours last year, so there was some years it's been a lot closer. There's been a little bit of conflict in terms of CCTV covering it and the school, the superintendent being able to attend both meetings, but I will check that date out again, and we'll circulate that to the finance committee. Oh, right, exactly. And make sure that works.
Okay.
Also, not in my report, I just wanted to mention that we learned today that, we remember a few weeks ago, we talked about the capital bond bill, and we got an earmark for the fueling station, working through Senator Barrett's office. In the same fashion, we worked with Senator Barrett's office and got an earmark in the environmental bond bill for $200,000 for repairs to the Greeno Dam. So
Wow.
certainly made Sylvia's day today to see that.
So more letters need to go?
Well, again, it's an earmark and a bond bill, so it's not real money until you break it loose, but it's in the law, so it can be funded now versus not being in there, so that was certainly good news. And I'll circulate to you the state officials that need to be lobbied heavily to make
Okay.
this happen, but it's some more good news.
Draft letter.
Yes, okay. I think that's everything in my report.
Okay, looking at the meeting schedule going forward,
Right.
the 28th, will you be here on the 28th? Because I'll have to call into that one, so if you could chair that one.
You're not going dancing that night?
No,
And so if
unfortunately.
you just make sure I'll be able to call in.
Sure. And that is the meeting you'll probably have to call for the special town meeting, so
Okay.
you'll need a quorum, whether here or remotely.
Do we need
to be
a
able
quorum
to-
even if I am,
Yeah.
because I'm remote, right?
Right, well, exactly,
I
here.
don't count as a.
You can vote if there's a quorum here. Right.
Is anybody else planning on not being around that day? Okay, great. Sorry to cause a problem. All right.
I guess if we do have a fall town meeting, which date do we need to put on? I mean, when do we discuss what could possibly go on there, which?
Yeah, when does the agenda for the meeting have to be completed?
Well, I would say you'd really want to know, I think, by the 28th, what articles are going to be on the warrant if you call for that
Yikes.
at town meeting. I think waiting until September 11th, I think that's going to be a little tight as far as getting it
Advertised and everything.
advertised and
So I do remember
possible, but
last spring, when we were talking about town, the last town meeting, there were some things that were more administrative, I think, that we punted down the road. I don't know whatever happened to the scenic byway, which was, now it's over a year, that hasn't hit. I don't know if they still want that.
oh, right, with Rockland Road and
Yeah.
another, yeah.
And there were other cleanups that were needed on some, I don't know if they were bylaws. I'm not remembering. I'm hoping that you're remembering.
I'll go back and check,
Okay.
check my notes on that. And also, our Complete Streets application, the priority plan has been filed with the state, and that's pending. If the town were to be awarded a construction grant of $400,000 or whatever number the state deems is appropriate, the town would have to fund design improvements for those projects.
Okay,
So
that would-
potentially, that could be an article that, contingent upon getting the state grant, the
Right.
town would appropriate.
And those are both
That's one of the
pathway
things that I was
projects.
thinking.
Yeah.
If it had to
Design.
do with the complete streets thing.
Yes,
that
yeah.
We would have to keep it moving, we would have to have a special
Money to-
town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So this might, yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
if
the
we're gonna be there, yeah.
Yeah, because the October one is the deadline for the application for the funds, right?
For the, correct.
Yeah, for the 400,000.
Right.
So we, yeah, it's the whole
So
thing.
we'll-
We know.
So
Right.
the stars aren't
So-
aligning.
No.
Right. And you wouldn't spend the design money if you didn't get the grant.
Contingent upon and
We
then.
could authorize it.
Right, certainly.
Oh, I see. So maybe the stars do align.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, because you make it contingent, there you go. Yep.
The planning board may also want to get something relative to funding for a consultant for the master plan,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
timing wise. I don't know.
Kind of messes with the FinCom though,
Yeah.
doing all these
Mhm.
funding things
Yeah.
mid-year.
Mhm.
It does, but I don't think they would be unprepared for this particular one.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well.
it's kind of,
Well, it just, it
I mean-
takes more out of the bucket from the spring. I mean, there's just less in that spring
Right.
bucket,
Right.
ultimately.
So you might want to think about a vote tonight to open the warrant for potential town meeting on October 2nd with the articles due by the 28th, so that
can we do that?
everybody who's thinking of something comes out of the woodwork and says,
They usually do.
well,
Yeah, well, let's do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What
moved.
what might the motion say?
move to declare open the warrant for a special town meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 2nd. I mean, if that changes, that's not a problem, but
Move to open a warrant for town meeting to take place on Tuesday, October 2nd.
right.
First and second, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then you could vote to close the warrant at your next meeting and finalize everything.
Okay, and so now the word will get out and people.
Well, we'll circulate a memo that if people have anything that they can't wait until the spring, and then we'll have to decide what's urgent and what isn't, but
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we still make the call as to what goes on
Mhm.
unless somebody does the whole petition thing.
right, exactly.
Next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not likely, no. In August,
So the
yeah.
only other thing that we kicked around potentially having at town meetings, whether or not, and I think that this came up at the last meeting, is to whether or not we consider changing the status of the fire chief. From,
I think this would be an
Strong
appropriate
chief to,
time to do so, since we're looking for a new fire chief, and it would be nice for them to know what the situation on the ground is from the get-go.
Yeah, but that might also be a question for them to ask the
Tomorrow.
masses tomorrow.
Yeah.
We can get a feel. Yeah, since they're gonna have everybody together.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay,
I know
I
that
just,
they're thinking about it, so.
Oh,
we
okay.
We did chat about it briefly.
Okay.
I'll just
Oh, did
say,
you go
I
ahead?
for one
Yeah,
am
you go
in
ahead.
favor of bringing that to town meeting if we decide that that would be an appropriate thing to do.
Okay. All right, so that's something else for us to consider. I don't know what the process is for that.
Well, it would, I mean, as simple as the board putting an article on the warrant, you probably want to have a public input session or two and
Right.
hear from the department
But
and
we'd have
others,
to do that by August 28th, since we'd be closing the warrant.
Right. Well, and you could also put it on the warrant and not move it at town meeting if
That's
the
true.
process, didn't play itself out in time.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, because then ultimately, if it is a December 1st decision date, then it's set.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait until the spring and then try to check, oh my God.
Yeah.
That'd be a nightmare.
If it's wanted, it's really the only time to do it.
Right. Yep.
I mean, it's not the only time to do it, it's the cleanest time to
Cleanest
do
time to
it.
do it, definitely, yeah. Yeah, good thinking.
You went to the first meeting of the search committee.
I did, yes.
And is it anticipated this is a national search?
Not so much. Obviously, they can reach out and do a more national thing, but it's, I think that it's thought that it's probably somebody who kind of is
the area.
more local, more in the area, and therefore kind of understands more the cultures and everything of around here, rather than coming from a full-time fire department in Seattle or something.
Okay.
And that kind of culture clash. I don't think that we would say no, but I think that the
I just-
focus
yeah.
will be more,
I don't know if the
more
discussions have
northeast
been made with
kind of
MRI
thing.
about that or anything
Yeah.
like that, yeah. What their scope is.
yeah. There already was one meeting with MRI, right?
With,
MRI.
no,
Okay. So that's
next Monday.
Monday.
Right.
Okay.
No, I've been in
We're gonna make
contact
that
with
one
them,
either.
and we've engaged
Hopefully
them.
we can make
I
that
will be
one.
there,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, got started just as my travel plans started, but no, I will be, in 2 weeks I'll be back. All right, let's see, I don't see any reason why we can't move on to the complete streets.
No, I mean, Deb's here and the Chief's here. They're both poised to
Were
speak
you
to them.
expecting anybody else to join you? Okay.
That's the trick chair, yeah.
That's the trick chair?
I tried to give you private seating.
I'll remember that.
Hello again.
Hola.
We lost him.
That's okay, you can
He'll
go.
be back.
Okay. Look at, there are three things that were on the agenda in this broad category. One was just an update on Mass Works. The second was an update on complete streets. And the third was a recommendation from TSAC about speed limits. So, starting with Mass Works, just to get that completed, I know that Melinda Gambino sent out an email and updated everybody and gave them the link. So, just as a matter of public record, we made the deadline. It was an awesome effort, I will have to say. A lot of people contributed, and we're excited about it. When we came here last time to talk about it, we had made a recommendation which the Selectmen agreed with, which was to put forward both Bedford Road and Concord Street as two major projects. After discussions directly with the director of the program, it became clear that we really needed to just put one project in, and opted to go with the one we've already begun spending money on engineering, rather than abandon that and the opportunities to work with the developer and work with Concord Street. So it seemed kind of an obvious choice. In so much as we're doing what was recommended, just not all of it, that I think we're under the same umbrella, and we're fine with the state, given the authorization that the Board of Selectmen provided to do both segments, and we're pursuing one of the two. So that's Mass Works. We should have a response from them in early October. Complete Streets, we are Still working out the details of costing out the individual prioritized projects that we had put together in tiers. And we expect to submit the application and upload all the documents sometime late next week. There's a individual at Tech who is on vacation. And it's really critical. You know, he was there from the start. He knows the schedules. He understands the cost dynamics. A few things have to be corrected. The XY coordinates at the end of Bedford Road are not accurate. And he's our man,
Yeah.
right? We are on time. The idea was that we would submit by the early September, and we will do that. So it's possible we will be coming back to the September 14th Board of Selectmen meeting and letting you know how we made out as we complete the documents.
It's the 11th.
The 11th, I'm sorry, not the 14th, the 11th. Sorry. So that's Complete Streets. Do you have questions about either MassWorks or Complete Streets?
I just thinking about this prioritization thing, I think in the last meeting, I'd asked if we could get a copy of the entire report.
Yes, and I'm assuming Mike Myers is pulling that together, that's their report. I will follow up with him.
Okay, great. I mean, electronically is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any other questions?
Anybody?
I emailed Melinda with some stuff.
Oh, did you? Okay. All right. So that leaves the TSAC recommendation. TSAC met in the last meeting and talked about a number of items, including what's going on with Complete Streets, and voted to recommend reducing the speed limits. And John's here to talk about that.
So the vote that was taken at town meeting really empowers us to ask for or request a public meeting on this. And then after that public meeting, I guess we'd ask for you folks to, you the power to change the speed limits by statute. But the first step is to have a public meeting. So I guess what we're here for is to talk about the public meeting, is to ask for a public meeting about this. And specifically the parameters, we have the exact language for the parameters that we're asking for, but that wasn't part of this packet, right? That you gave them tonight?
I mean, where the speed limit changes?
Well, I mean, I know off the top of my head where they changed.
Yes, yeah.
You do have it, all right,
Excellent.
all right, thank you.
As long as you know where the roads are.
Yep, yeah, so, I mean, we worked, yeah, we worked on that language. I just didn't want to say it out loud and then have you scramble the notes, because it definitely makes better sense if it's in writing. But I guess what we'd ask is for the public meeting and this to be the companion document that kind of, or the words that kind of drive that, so that folks know specifically what the TSAC recommendation is. But we would envision the majority of the meeting would be spent listening to Carlisle residents' ideas on this, whether these are the right dimensions, wrong dimensions, right speeds, and that I think after that, then we would request Selectmen to change speed limits if you think it's appropriate after that meeting. Does that make sense?
Are the TSAC recommendations based on any data?
So we have data of speeds, absolutely. And so, I mean, raw data is raw data. At every single spot, people are speeding. And, you know, that's not changed since the last time we met and talked about it in the auditorium, right? That more than 50% of the people are driving, you know, 5+ miles an hour over the speed limit in all these areas. But it's really not just, I mean, the speeds are the speeds. you know, like a speed limit, it's whether it's reasonable and prudent for the day-to-day conditions existing, right? So I think that's where the townspeople speak up and say, we recognize that, you know, people are going 39 miles per hour on average when they're hitting that crosswalk, you know, by 146 Bedford. But, you know, the police can't be offended by that. But the townspeople could say, hey, we really think that's too fast. And if you drop that speed limit inbound at 25 miles an hour, starting at Kimball's, when you really start to see where the trails are in town is really where we're talking about these speed limits being reduced, right? So the townspeople would say, if you did this, this would be a good thing for our town. Does that make sense? So that's more the discussion, not just the raw data. The raw data can be provided, and then people understand that, yes, people are traveling well over the speed limit when they're coming into and out of Carlisle in the areas that we're talking about, that we've identified.
Are there data that show when you do reduce the speed limits, there's any change in accident rate, pedestrian interactions, anything like that?
Yes, the Federal Highway has a number of websites where they have put up research that shows various treatments for pedestrian safety and what it looks like 3 months after the change and what it looks like 6 months after the change. And the single biggest impact on pedestrian safety is reduction in speed.
But, I mean, it's interesting, all the reductions are where we already have pathways.
Right.
Which would indicate the pedestrian is not out the road anyway.
Well, the pedestrians
But
are not
that's-
separated by the road by very much in certain circumstances. And because our roads have very poor sight lines and cars traveling faster than they should be going on roads with curves and sight lines, they're not seeing pedestrians, and people come off the road to look at something, and there isn't a response. I mean, the math of it is simple, and Chief knows this is, you know, if you're traveling 25 miles an hour, your ability to stop is about 32.
A perception
34.
reaction time in daylight, perfect conditions is a second and a half, and that 1.5 also works as a good multiplier. 1.5 times the speed will give you the number of feet per second the car is traveling. A la, you know, the higher the speed, the further the car is going to travel before you even perceive and react to someone. And in Carlisle, with the sight lines that we have, we really don't have the appropriate sight lines to be traveling in some of the spots we are at the speed limits where they are. And to really be effective at this. And, you know, we know this, you know this from federal data, but we also know this kind of just, I mean, I think we all know this from the amount of time we spend around here. And, you know, in any type of calamity we've had, you could probably be tied to this on the roads.
Well, the new stop sign really makes the point, doesn't it? I mean, it makes so much sense.
There's just a
On
whole
Rutland
lot.
Road. Oh my gosh, yeah. World
More
of
and more
difference.
data has been developed about, you know, safe driving on rural roads, which ours are considered. And there have been so many changes to driver distraction in the past 10, 12 years. That coupled with high speeds, poor sight lines, converge such that you come around a corner, there isn't enough time to stop if somebody's crossing the road.
I also think, I'm sorry.
No.
I think that, you know, when these speeds are loaded onto the traffic programs too, that a lot of people use, and I hate to call them out, Google Maps, Waze, when that speed gets dropped to 25 and people are actually traveling slower, it'll all of a sudden become less popular, may become less popular for those who are just using Carlisle as a cut-through drag strip. And they'll say, oh, I mean, you know, my Waze isn't even sending me that way anymore because their speed's at 25. I mean, I would hope there'd be some of that too, that we change the
They'll still be going
texture of the
30.
town, the texture of that area in the middle of our town.
I'm you know, I'm projecting where people may have some disagreement with it.
Sure.
And I'm on the Transportation Research Board, so I know a lot of these data.
You didn't learn anything from us tonight.
I thought they were loaded questions,
Yeah.
because I know what you do. So.
But, no, it's good, and the extension from what's currently 25 to what currently is 30 to 35 on these roads isn't all that great in these cases. It's relatively small, as a matter of fact.
Some of them are pretty long. I mean, the one that jumps out at me is the Concord Road one, all the way down to Bingham at 25. That's a long way at 25. The Rockland one makes total sense, you know, because you get past the fire department, right?
Past the flats, and then
Yeah.
you slow down at the fire department. So one of the things we talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, was the amount of foot traffic that goes over to Clark Farm. And that's just a reality, and they're right against the road. And I can't even tell you the number of classes I've seen young people walking, and if the speed limit was reduced there, it would change the texture of that area, because that's a real thing that folks in Carlisle do, is walk down that road to that farm from the school and from the center of
Yeah.
town.
There is a pathway there, but
Without a curb.
But Bingham is even
Is a little by that.
is way past that, really.
So the logic is that by the time you respond to the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, you're at Clark Farm, if you've seen that the first time at Bingham. Second part of that is that there's a school bus stop opposite Bingham on Concord Street with a platform where, you know, kids are dropped off by parents and they just stand on that road. So they're crossing Bingham Road, they're coming from Bingham Road, crossing Concord to stand on the Clark Farm side of the road. So you've got that population as well. It's two. It's school children and field trips to Clark Farm, giving drivers enough notice that it's important to get to a lower speed limit, and also providing some kind of protection for kids who are crossing the road, texting, tweeting, to get to their
So I
high
think
school.
all of these things would be important things to be bringing up when mentioning why it is where it is. And what about all the way out to Stern Street? I could see it, I'm just trying to think of the questions that will be asked at the public hearing, because I've heard so much about this from people.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard a lot.
So Stern Street is one of those intersecting roads that collects many walkers from the
The trails.
neighborhoods that come on to Stearns and can make it to Bedford Road from there. So it's not just the few houses that happen to be near the intersection of Stearns, it's people coming from all the different intersecting roads behind that. There's a population map, which we can get the numbers. But that's A. B is, it's a very popular walking route for walking clubs that are coming out of the center of town, like Center Park, and walking out past Kimball's and out to Stearns and hitting the trails and coming back down again. So for us, we live here, this is an important amenity, and we want to make it safe, and we want the right, as the chief said, the right texture for our environment. We're all users of the road in different ways, and I think, that it's really more of an educational, approach.
It just
Look
seems
at that distance from Stearns to the top driveway at the ice cream place. I ran it this morning. I mean, that route is, I was out there with somebody else running that was in front of me. That's a popular route. You come down Stearns, take a left on Bedford. Everybody's looking to cut across. You're only really going about 20 or 30 yards before you cut across, hit that top parking lot entrance to Kimball's, and then can get down to the pathway. I can't even tell you how many people I see. I'm not trying to be selfish. Obviously, I'm not going to run out in front of a car, but there's a lot of people out there. I see people on a regular basis on the side of the road doing that 30, 40 yards, getting themselves over that top Kimball's parking lot. So I think that's an appropriate spot. If you put the 25 starting there, that means people in reality will start slowing down right after that, and maybe it will be slowed down by the time they get to Kimball's.
Perhaps we could develop some fact sheets and photographs and bring them to the meeting on the 11th as part of the materials that would be supplied in the public hearing. Would be, happy to pull those together to help explain the rationale. You just brought a picture of that section between Stearns and Kimball's. The tree canopy is complete. It's very dark. It's very shaded. It's a curved road with very poor sight lines. It's asking for a lower speed.
Yeah, I just compare it, and, you know, I'm not being negative, I'm just bringing up what I think, you know, what I know people have said to me. You compare it, you know, these are the main throughways, right? And, you know, it's kind of adding to the traffic a little bit. Hopefully Waze will
Negate a
send
few of
people
those.
the other way.
Mhm.
But there are main throughways that are wide, you know, have the best sight lines compared to like Cross Street or Russell Street, or, you know, but there's,
West.
you know, Brook Street, and, you know, there's so many other roads in town that really have major problems that have 35-mile-per-hour speed limits. And it's kind of like, why are we focused on the highways when there's these other roads? But we can't, the only thing this bylaw.
Talk about Brooks as a densely populated area, as much as I would love to drop that speed limit to 25 out there. Just for the number of mirrors get banged every year between Brooks and Maple.
Yeah.
It's a
I
tree,
mean-
look at the notched trees.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
No,
no,
no, I
it's-
mean, that, I.
You know,
Believe me, I would
you have-
selfishly
And
have
he's
a love
riding
it.
as
kids
well.
on
I mean,
Cross
'cause I-
Street or Russell Street, and, I mean, it's dangerous to be on those roads because the speed limit's so high.
Yeah.
But there
But
isn't
we're
a-
gonna take the highways and make them 25.
The difference is when you're on a side road, there isn't an illusion of pedestrian safety. You know, there's no accommodation. If you're walking, it's on you. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to be careful. When you're walking along a major arterial, there's an expectation for pedestrian accommodation that's safe. And we could accomplish that with lower speed limits.
I don't agree
I'm
with
not-
you, I'm
not sure
sorry.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
everybody should have an expectation of pedestrian safety or bicycle
absolutely.
safety.
Well, actually, if you talk to traffic engineers, they say that there is no such thing as safety. It is a measured risk, and every user and participant on public ways are accepting those risks. And the job we have of owners of managing the roadways and the risks is to look at ways to mitigate.
And we did that by creating pathways in all the
Exactly.
areas where we're talking about dropping the speed limit.
Since we've created those pathways, we have had an increase in the volume of traffic, and we have had slowly increasing speeds, and we have now distracted drivers on smartphones. So it's a different set of circumstances. We have evolved from what the conditions were in 2007 to a different set of factors today.
Have we had increased pedestrian-involved accidents?
You know what, I think we have at the Bedford Road crosswalks. We've had near misses, we've had cars crashing into another, and a kid almost getting hit in a crosswalk because the second car didn't see the first car stop. We have an increase in interest and concern among parents in Carlisle who showed in fairly large numbers to the auditorium at the school to talk specifically about, can you add speed bumps, lower the speed limit, increase the signs, add lights, do anything and everything you can possibly do.
And that's a lot of what we're trying to address, though, with the Complete Streets project.
I understand that.
Right.
And you'll know the statistics that the single two most effective changes you can make for pedestrian safety is speed and disruption of the driver's experience, which isn't a light or a sign.
Mhm.
But I mean, I envision this public hearing not being us defending
Yeah.
this.
Exactly.
And I don't mean that cavalierly. I mean, I'm a little bit uncomfortable being the person that's going to be charged with enforcing a law and also proposing a law, or proposing a rule, because that's not my leg at the stool. I'll probably try to stick to the statistics and what we've noticed, and let the folks in Carlisle talk about this, and maybe we'll receive direction from them, because we could be all wet. You know, maybe people are like, no way do I want to slow down when I'm going by Kimball's. That will add a minute onto my drive home, or, you know, whatever it is. Maybe we'll receive different direction than we think. But I tell you, the only homework that I left that meeting in the auditorium was with people who are pretty adamant about this being a problem in our town and wanting safer spots and lower speeds, safer spots for the kids to be on the roads and lower speeds.
Yeah, and, you know, driving around, I've driven, you know, I've checked these out a lot since the first time when we actually approved the speed limit changes. I mean, you know, there's a lot of inconsistency in the speed limits. Like, you drive out Westford Street, and it's like 25, 30, 40, 35, you know, it's up and down and up and down, and to me, it makes complete sense to bring that to Rockland. And, you know, I think going out Bedford, it needs to be 25 longer than it is. I just worry that these are too far, and that
Okay.
we may not get
Support?
the lower speeds where we really need it, because we've extended it a little too far. I mean, I absolutely think Bedford needs to be 25 I mean, you're almost in town when you hit the 25-mile-per-hour speed
Yeah.
limit.
Yeah.
And you're, you know, you've just gone by Kimball's, the road is nice and wide, you're all, you know, everything's happy, and then boom, there's 25, but you're already almost in town. So I just worry that if we extend it too far, we won't get anything. You know, just.
But the public hearing's the public hearing, I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
expect
Yeah,
them,
that's fine.
if they slide it in, you know, a quarter mile like you're talking about, till you're almost into town, well, that's the direction that was provided, and you'd vote like you'd vote.
What
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of-
and ultimately too, if something we realize doesn't work, we can change it. You know, I mean, I know you don't want to
Yeah.
go changing the speed limit all the time.
Well, no, we can
But-
only make it 25, we can't remove the 25.
But you can put the speed limit back.
Yeah, you put it
Oh, we
back.
can put it
Sure,
back.
yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so that's the
Oh, I
thing.
thought we
mean,
could only lower it.
No, so if we
Maybe you
create some
can-
sort of major traffic jam or some sort of issue, we go, oh, wait a second, yeah, let's put it back.
We can go back and extend if we come out of the public hearing and there isn't really the support there for the more distant endpoints. And then we see that it actually has a good impact and it's tolerable for benefits. We can
I just
revisit.
have one other question, and that's what kind of resources can we devote to enforcement? Because, first of all, our current speed limits need to be enforced, obviously, and then even when we have a 25, that's not to say that they're going to go 25. They'll do at least 5, if not 10 miles an hour
I think that's the
more,
real-
because that was what they were used to, and if we don't enforce it, doesn't matter what we put on our sign. But I'm just,
No, but yeah, I mean, you have the realism that, I mean, I've tried, I can't even tell you how many times we've done directed patrols on Bedford Road, but, you know, I think one of the things Mr. Brown brought up that was, it's important is how far in Bedford Road the people are flying, because we've tried to catch people flying over that crosswalk, and you might get 3, 5, but 38 to 40 right there is a lot.
yeah.
But it's not really, you would never get a conviction in Concord for a 40 and a 35, which is not gonna happen. We don't get many convictions as it is for
Okay,
speeding
so-
tickets
so-
in the Commonwealth, and definitely not in this court. I mean, I probably,
So
get
you need it
probably
for
get
enforcement
2/3 of
even,
our
is what
tickets
you're
back.
saying, okay.
No reasonable, nothing unreasonable found before it even gets to a judge's hearing. It doesn't even pass the clerk. You know, nope.
So at 25.
45, 35,
45
nope.
chance.
You know, they just don't pass muster.
Would the 25-mile limit, speed limit make it more possible to stop people doing 40?
Well, if that person, so now that person is hitting Bedford Road inbound, that crosswalk at 40 and at 25, now they've got 15 over. That's a legitimate ticket all day, right?
You're talking about the
Okay.
one right at the cemetery?
Well,
No, the one closer
The
to,
one
Yeah,
closer in town?
you know.
Right, okay.
yeah. We're really talking about both, because they're similar. issues.
yeah,
Well, as you say, you're looking for behavioral changes more than, we don't have enough accidents to, if we use that as a criteria for justifying what we did, we're not gonna be able to do it. You're gonna have to look for behavioral changes, and do people actually slow down because of that speed limit change?
And it's hard to make that happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's,
With
but it
speed.
would be
Plus, if you
really
can't
good
make a
if it
ticket
did.
stick, then it
Okay,
doesn't.
so is this gonna be a
You want the guy
public
to go
hearing?
to work and say, God, I just got a ticket in Carlisle, boy, don't speed in Carlisle, 'cause I mean, that's how it you know,
that's exactly how it happens.
that's how it happens.
So this would be a public hearing at a Board of Selectmen meeting or a separate meeting?
I think it would be part of a selectmen's meeting, public input session.
Boy, we had, what, at least 50, 60 people at that one at the school, and if we had that again, I don't know if you guys would want that here. I'm just saying, logistically, I'm willing to do anything else.
That would be good.
Does the MassWorks crosswalk change in this configuration? It doesn't? It goes all the way down opposite Kimball's?
The two crosswalks at 142 and down at Kimball's, the location of those have both been confirmed by two engineering firms as the best siting, given the conditions, sightlines.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by like that too, but they had no better suggestion, and they thought that they belonged there. Yeah.
And the pathway, the crosswalks are themselves a pathway. You know, there isn't, the pathway stops, you must cross. There isn't.
Yeah, yeah,
So
right.
you really have an obligation to make a, crosswalk safe. I think we're doing, maybe we have great luck. We have a lot of residents who are concerned, there are a lot of parents out walking around, and the school's gonna start in, 2.5 weeks? It's the right time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so when are we gonna have this?
Yeah, I don't know. Not the 28th.
This September 11th?
11th?
Well, if they're doing it as part of a selectmen's meeting, we'll probably be here.
We just had so many people show up.
Yeah,
I know, yeah, that's.
I think it'd be too much as part of the selectmen's meeting. I mean, unless it's a very light agenda.
I just-
'Cause it was-
Well, you're just not gonna put that many people in here.
I don't know that we can even see.
What was that meeting? 2 hours long? That
Yeah, it
was.
was a couple hours.
Yeah. It was lively.
I think it
Yeah.
needs to be a Board of Selectmen meeting, though, even if it's not
Yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's our
Right.
public
No, I
hearing.
agree, yeah.
Right.
Want to have the,
Well, it could be one of the in-between weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Just not sure what else is going on in.
so the 18th.
18th, September 18th. What's happening then? That's September 18th.
Yom Kippur
Don't
starts
have
that day.
anything going on.
Yeah, well, you don't want to do it on Yom Kippur.
Yeah, that's Yom Kippur.
Absolutely not.
We could always do Monday.
We do it Monday.
The 17th? I have, yes. My stupid calendar says it's Wednesday, but that means that it's Tuesday night. Okay, the 17th?
Sounds good to me.
Are there other, should we do this jointly with any other committees? Are there any other committees that would be,
Well,
probably
yeah,
TSAC.
TSAC.
Yeah, we could.
I was just wondering, it's like, should planning board be invited, or?
You could invite them, right?
I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
they would know
I
it's a
mean-
public meeting, but I'm just wondering if there's any
Yeah.
other committee that,
I think the planning board is sort of the MassWorks intersection,
Yeah.
and TSAC is the Complete Streets intersection in terms of collaboration. Not sure they are involved in speed limits in the areas we're talking
I
about.
mean, the reason for the public hearing is to inform us as well, because we have to vote on this.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously Melinda knows someone on planning, so,
We can get to
yeah,
that-
right, so,
that group.
right, we
Well,
can.
I
we
think
can
it's up
see.
to us to let the other boards know
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we're gonna have this hearing, and we hope that they will attend if they have any interest.
The Complete Streets, or the MassWorks application basically said that we're doing nothing to a state road. Why? Isn't 225 a state road? It is not.
It's designated but not owned.
Oh,
That's to get almost to the bridge in Bedford.
I got you.
There are layers of.
I just couldn't understand that.
Yeah.
Let's try to, let's try to use
Hair on
common
fire.
sense.
Okay.
all right, so
Okay.
17th?
17th.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can't,
Monday.
let's pencil it in, because we
Yeah,
need
I'll
to make sure
check
that
on the
school's
availability.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if between now and your next meeting, not next meeting, but the one on the 11th, if we collect ideas of what information might be helpful
Mm.
for the public meeting in terms of information, then we can try to develop those, to the extent that it's available, but we certainly would go at it.
That'd be great.
Do you think it would be appropriate to talk about the MassWorks plan?
at that meeting.
at that meeting. I mean, it's an opportunity to,
Yeah, get some info.
We could do both, MassWorks and Complete Streets. It seems more connected to Complete Streets
Yeah.
than MassWorks,
Yeah.
but I, don't- you know, that may be just how I'm looking at it, and maybe that's myopic. But it would be, it may be useful to do an update on the two, you know, just project status.
right.
One thing, I don't think that you were here yet, but earlier we talked about having a special town meeting.
I told her.
Okay. So if we're gonna be going for funds, that would be a good,
Okay. When do we need to?
28th of August, we would need to know.
Yeah.
need to know?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
opened
my
the
response
warrant
was
tonight,
tomorrow.
and the 28th, we're gonna close it.
Well, I mean, yeah, we need it before the 28th, but
Yeah.
we'll be
Yes.
voting on the
Yeah, we're
28th.
voting on the 28th.
So when do you?
Yesterday.
Well, usually a few days before,
Good.
so like the Wednesday or Thursday
Yeah.
before the meeting.
Yeah,
to
we
give
would
us
absolutely
time to-
need it probably by the Monday or Tuesday before the meeting, so that everything can get in the package.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we'll
let's
leave
just
it
say by Monday night of the,
So the
21st.
Monday the 21st,
yeah.
which is basically tomorrow.
Is it?
No, I mean, it's, you got a week, yeah.
Week.
With a little bit of fluff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we,
Ballpark-ish.
it could be polished, I mean, but we need a placeholder, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I mean, I've got kind of a draft article in mind that could
Okay.
Yeah.
plug in for now, and, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So you'll find out about
Availability of the
availability and.
auditorium? Is that the,
Yeah, I would say if it's not then,
do you want the cafeteria or the auditorium? Does that matter?
No, I don't think it matters whether it's cafeteria or auditorium,
No.
does it?
if it's not then, it's gonna have to be a lot later, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be, like the 15th or 16th of October.
That sounds really good.
Oh, we're talking about the public hearing for the 25 mile an hour.
Yeah.
I was talking about the special
Yeah,
town meeting.
No.
Talking about
Special
the
town
public
meeting
hearing,
is the 2nd of October. That's
Right,
already,
because we can't-
that's graven in
because
granite.
Then we start running into that town meeting, the
Right.
special town meeting. So if it's not, let's go ahead and check like the 15th or 16th. If
If that doesn't,
the other one isn't available.
okay.
Of October.
No.
Oh, it looks like,
Well, that'd be the weekend.
Because 15th or 16th is a weekend
That would be,
in September, so that's why I'm trying to understand which month he's referring to.
The 17th was a Monday.
We're talking about the 17th, which is a Monday, so
17th.
15th or 16th
of
was.
October.
September.
Of
Different
October.
month,
So,
yes.
yes, that's what I was saying. So he was referring to October, 15th or 16th of October,
Alright.
if we can't do it on the 17th
Yeah,
of
so it's
September.
gotta be,
Are you
yeah.
s- So we do the public hearing for speed in October? Is that?
If we can't do it on the 17th.
Okay. Okay.
We're
I got you.
trying for the 17th.
Got you.
Okay,
I'm
that's why we're.
trying to make sure that it doesn't wait until the 28th for us to figure out another date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Understood.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for all your effort on this.
Oh, my gosh.
Fantastic.
yeah,
Great fun with you?
Yes.
good fun.
For some reason, this is showing that I'm in the Netherlands.
Of October?
The spreadsheet?
which month?
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah, which
Jim
month?
Jim put it in their packets, yeah.
October.
What year?
Oh,
Well,
maybe Jen can grab,
It's not-
Nathan,
figure
do you
out
have the
where I'm being sent.
print
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
do you have an extra copy for
You just
Deb?
put that on your calendar. That's nice.
Alrighty, moving on.
what did you want?
Is this all my stuff or some of this yours?
Alright,
That's yours.
Here you go, take mine.
that's mine.
Yeah, yeah. Do you need, yeah, yours for minutes?
That went longer than we
Where are
thought.
we? Who are we?
We
And what
are
are we
at
doing?
the Board of Selectmen goals. We've done appointments, we've done the town administrator report.
That's 9.
We have a
in the minutes yet.
CCTV person here.
Well, then why don't we do that?
Oh, you are such a good guy, Nathan.
Why don't we jump to CCTV? Oh, it says it's discussion.
Yeah, you should have in your packet the copy of the press release from Town of Concord and CCTV from last week, announcing that Town of Concord will be assuming local access programming effective October 1st with the agreement of the CCTV board. And obviously it has a lot of implications for Carlisle. As well, I did talk with the town manager last week, and they're very willing to accommodate Carlisle for a month or 3 months or a year, whatever, we think that we need from them. I'm going to meet with him in a few weeks to talk about that, if that's the board's wish. And I know Christine is here tonight, who is the town's representative on the
3 months,
Big
a
access
year, so
advisory
no
board.
ongoing agreement?
Oh, well, they're willing to talk about that. Or if we wanted just something in the interim while we figure things out, they're open to that as well.
But even they are talking about a 1 or 2 year interim process themselves, aren't they, while they try to work something out?
Right. I mean, it's all kind of happening pretty quickly, and Christine may know more than I do at this point.
Thanks.
I had been meeting with a couple folks in town, Carrie and Claude and Sid, just to sort of talk about the fact that we really felt like we wanted more of the CCTV stuff, or I don't know what we'll call it now, but more access to this equipment. And we had gone so far as to explore, okay, so what if we break off totally and take our money and just keep it in Carlisle? And we could see just by the work that it was for the few of us together to realize, well, we would need a lot of people with a lot of commitment to have that happen. So I think we had boiled it down to what we were going to ask CCTV to do was just sort of give us enough equipment here in Carlisle so that if kids wanted to make a video, they could go into the library and borrow the equipment. And there's editing software that could be easily put on a computer. There's already editing equipment, I think, in the computers in the school, but we want to make this available to everybody. So that seemed to be a really great answer, that we're just looking for accessibility. Because right now, if I wanted to run a class on how to make a TV show, I would be working with middle school students or elementary school students. I can't get them over to the high school. And so then it becomes a logistical nightmare. So that, kids are making YouTube videos all the time now. It'd be great to have this resource right in our own town. And I think this is a great opportunity, sort of with the implosion of CCTV and everybody's going to be exploring what to do with this great asset, that I would love to interject it to Concord, that they look at the equipment and see what they could give us. The library in town, although it was the last director of the library who agreed to it very enthusiastically, said, oh yeah, we will definitely find space. We're doing a space study right now. We would definitely find space for this equipment. We would love to, we are a lending place, and we lend media, so this is a great natural resource for them too. So I do sit as an observing member of the PEG Access Advisory
Committee
right now, and I have that meeting tomorrow, and I know that the CCTV board is meeting right now. So I don't know that I can do it through the PEG Access meeting, but I just thought, while this topic is really hot in Concord, I think it would be really great if we could define what our desires are as a town and see if we could put that together and ask them. I mean, I don't know what the rules of the game are.
I don't think any of us do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, so currently, our contract with CCTV is extended until what point we decide we no longer want to extend it. I mean, it's just kind of like, we'll call it month to month.
Yeah.
We are under contract, but it's the old contract that's just extended. And and we signed that, so we are under contract. It's not clear to me, like, you know, what happens because Concord is now taking it over. You know, we've been putting money in.
Yep.
You know, so in this whole process, the school space, the school.
You mean the high school?
Yeah, the high school, that's all just gonna remain and be funded by Concord?
One of the things that Concord in the district want to do is to formalize a lease of that space. There are a number of conditions that I think that the high school would like to see in place that aren't there currently.
Mhm.
That's what the town manager told me. So I think they're going to be working on that lease agreement. And again, they offered that we could have free access and use of that equipment, that we didn't have a discussion of moving any of that
Right.
equipment over here.
Right,
But,
and that's, I mean, I'm not as concerned about moving the equipment, I understand that.
No,
we
no,
need
that's fine.
equipment, But I'm not as concerned about that as much as making sure that this deal, if we do something else, does that impact Carlisle students from being able to use
The high
the
school's
equipment
facility.
at the high school?
Well, that, I have to say, that is something we definitely would not want to impact, because I'm hoping that with a new life being breathed into PEG Access over in Concord, that more students will be encouraged to go down there and use that equipment. So I certainly don't want to cut out Carlisle students. But as I understand it, we paid for the construction of part of that building because it didn't fit into the building. I forget what it was
Scope of the
called.
building project?
Well, it's fit into the scope, but state funds did not fund that
Right.
space.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so
We
Concord,
paid
We
for
have-
part of it,
we paid
which the
certain-
school would be leasing to another
From-
entity.
well, why would the school be leasing it if
And
it
that's what you were just saying.
belongs to
Yeah.
Concord and
Space
Carlisle?
belongs to the school, I guess, is what, they'd be
Uh,
leasing that space.
The school would be
The
leasing
equipment
it to this
belongs to
other
the
organization
communities,
that's
right.
owned by the town of Concord.
Right.
That's a part of the town of
I didn't think that space belonged to the school, but you know better than I do.
They-
I would
Does the regional school?
presume that they
Okay.
control it, they.
All right.
But
So anything that I was trying to do in terms of bringing stuff over here would not be at the expense of students at the high school. That would be foolish, because my thought would be that we would be building an enthusiasm here in town that they would take to the high school, rather than choosing one over the other. But I don't know what they're gonna do for staffing, but they had a pretty big staff over there. And I don't know that Concord's gonna re-support that. I'm sure they're gonna look at all of that, but, you know, for them to not have to sign out equipment for every time there's a meeting over here in Carlisle would be, you know, less work for them. And I think that the equipment would just be used more if we could get our town involved in it.
Yeah. So how would we, like, so let's just go down the path of saying, okay, we know that the high school students are, you know.
Gimme.
We have full access to that. And so now what we need to figure out what we want to do, we're going to do it ourselves. We're not going to join with Concord. We're going to do our own thing.
I'm not even saying that. What I'm saying is if we're working together with Concord, part of that agreement would be that there would be local equipment for Carlisle. I don't think it would be wise for us to try to take on the management of a cable station ourselves, because we don't have the people, we don't have the facilities. And so this was one of Claude's ideas, to just say, well, just bring a little bit of equipment over here. I mean, I'd also love to have them kit out the meeting room or the community room in the school, so that other meetings, the school committee, could be recorded without having to have someone come and do that. But, you know, this is a much broader conversation that I'm thrilled to start here.
Yeah, I think because we had talked about outfitting the multi-function room, and it's all wired to be able to do that and everything. But the problem is we're giving all of our PEG money
To Concord.
Concord.
But are we? I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't think that was, I thought there was a buffer.
I've heard rumors of a buffer.
Yeah, I thought there was like 25 or 30,000, because I remember having the discussion that maybe we can use that to buy some equipment and then we use the rest to go in. And maybe this was the agreement with, for some reason, a number like 85,000 sticks in my head for Concord, which left us like 25 to 30. You know, because that's when Claude got on the whole kick of, ooh, we can buy this and this is cheaper and this is cheaper.
Yeah, he's done a lot of research.
Yeah.
Would not be a
Whereas-
lot of money.
There's, separately, there's capital money that Comcast had been providing. I think it was $10,000 a year for 9 years. They were required to provide that. And we did vote at town meeting to appropriate, I think it was $125,000. The money was not spent, has not been turned over to CCTV.
Yeah.
We're just kind of holding that in abeyance until.
And so
things get
how
sorted
much
out.
is that money?
It's $125,000.
So maybe we don't need to ask them to kit out that room, but,
I think we also just want to be careful that we know if we're spending the money on the equipment, we know that we have the people that it's going to be used.
Yeah.
well, I can't guarantee you that, but I can guarantee you this, more people are likely to use it if it's here. I mean, the kids literally walk from the school to the library. So I just think that that's, and I also know that I had spoken with the superintendent, and when I initially was thinking that we could put it in the school, he was very excited about it. He doesn't want to manage it, he doesn't want his staff to manage it, but if there was equipment that could be in his library, he would love that. And then Claude said, well, the school's not really accessible to everybody, so then
Yeah,
he
we
brought
have
up
to
the
be careful.
library. But if there was funding to do the school too, let's put all the wishes on the table. I would love to see our kids do a broadcast in the morning of the news and things like that, because all those marvelous whiteboards that they have in those classrooms they can broadcast onto them. So, there's a lot of possibility here, and you've got some really bright people who know exactly what they're talking about through Sid and Claude about the cost of these things and the access to them. They've done a lot of research already.
So moving forward, what is the process going to be in how we work this out with Concord? Or
Well,
is it still just way too unknown on their side?
they're still, this is all happening very quickly for them as well. They weren't anticipating, taking over the operation in like a 7-week timeframe.
Yeah.
But they've offered a meeting, and if any member of the board wants to be part of that, let me know. And so we talk about what it might look like if they were to support, Carlisle in terms of local access. There have been a number of changes, I understand, with the staff, CCTV. There are not as many employees as there once were, is my understanding. They're talking about who they might retain from that group, what other employees they might have to hire
Yeah.
to support, their own needs, but also if they were to support Carlisle as well. So it's very kind of a fluid.
Well, and I would say a
situation.
year ago, they wanted to open a satellite.
I was gonna say, what happened to that
Yeah,
plan, where they
well,
were gonna go into the extension building,
Well, I think what probably came out of that was this this PAAC, this is the PEG Access group, to find out, what is the right thing to do. I'll be interested to see what the mandate of that meeting is tomorrow.
And
To see.
that's the committee you're on?
Yeah, I'm not actually on the committee, although that could change too if,
Do we have we're providing $85,000 a year.
We should have some
CCTV.
information.
At
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
why wasn't
Well,
I a voting
the
member?
numbers are right here, 380,000 from Concord and 85 from Carlisle.
Yeah, I think that's a
That's-
little
that's
understated.
the
They
announcement,
decided
that's
we
not
weren't
that
going to have a voting
accurate, yeah.
member.
Say that again?
Because they decided we.
They
weren't.
decided. They
Yeah.
do that a lot over there.
Yeah. But my understanding is that is now on the table. That is being
I
offered
think we should
now.
have an official member.
Absolutely.
Well, and I would recommend that it be Claude. I mean, he just has such a depth of knowledge that I can still sit as an.
Well, let's meet with them, get them to
Yeah.
agree that we get
Yeah.
such a member, then we can.
So who's our CCTV liaison?
I am.
Yay!
Claude, right?
I think Tim nailed it. They are gonna be, Concord is gonna be scrambling to figure out how to staff this effectively and move forward with it. I don't think we could expect any additional services
No.
in the short term, because they're gonna be completely overwhelmed for a period
Right,
of time.
right, but
This is
They also
A lot of
mentioned
things
that,
that were happening out of the blue that they
Yeah.
just couldn't
Yep.
anticipate.
it was also mentioned that we might want to hire our own person to do the meetings and so forth, and they'd be happy to broadcast any content we would provide them, so they may not even be able to provide a staff person, that they don't, that's how up in the air it is. They're not sure how many people they're gonna be able to,
To hire Claude.
well, maybe.
We couldn't, he's an elected official.
No.
I didn't mean we'd actually pay him.
Like Bill, like Bill.
Yeah,
We'd give them a contract, but there'd be no money.
All right,
But
I think we should meet with them, just.
Yeah, no, we'll
figure
set that
out
up,
what-
and Kerry, you wanna be part of that?
Sure.
Okay. I'll,
I've been attending their board meetings, so.
The other thing I just want to throw out there is that we're getting pretty close, within like a couple of years, of our contract needing to be renewed
With
with
Comcast.
right.
I think we probably need to get on that because it could probably take a little while, I would think, with a small company like Comcast.
Right.
What's-
Well, a
a
little.
mom and pop operation like that?
In a big town like
I
ours.
did reach out to our cable attorney about 2 months ago now.
Cable attorney?
Yeah, Attorney Bill Solomon, I don't know, those who were involved in the last go-round,
Yeah,
remember
that's
Bill.
way before my time.
So he owes me a response. We talked, once or twice, and he said it's not too early to start engaging on this, and
Yeah.
so I'll reach out to him again and see what,
Is there anybody here who would like to take that on?
I'll meet with them.
Oh, great.
Okay. Great.
And it says, and here it says CCTV
Comcast
is
contract.
already negotiated.
Yeah, but it belongs to that chair. That's the
It's
chair.
at the end.
You know,
Yeah.
That's where
Under the
Claude
table.
sat.
This is where it is.
it's passed all the way
It's
down.
booby trapped.
You may want to move to the other side of the table.
Yeah, right. That's the way it works, everybody just turns to the left.
I think they believe that we haven't paid what we owe them for this year, which is around $100,000 that we haven't paid.
Yeah, we haven't, no, that's true.
CCTV and / Concord.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, so
yeah,
this.
so there's, I mean, there's a lot of
Well,
flux in,
So that should
When
be
they give us a
And
voting
that-
member, we'll pay them.
yeah, right.
They'll bring the check.
But that's
Quid
a
pro
different,
quo.
he's gonna be working on the
On the new
Comcast
contract.
contract.
Yeah.
No, not with CCTV, with Comcast.
Comcast. Okay,
Well,
yeah.
the contract is with CCTV, Comcast contract.
No,
There are two.
the
there's
Comcast.
two.
There's a license
Really?
agreement with Comcast.
Two towns.
You've been negotiating with Comcast.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I do that
So-
all the time anyway.
So I would add to that, since all of the locks are opened on this, because Concord's not sure what they're doing, I think it would be a good time for Carlisle to really explore our options. Because Comcast may turn around and say to us, all right, we'll start a brand-new contract with you and we'll start all over again, and we may be able to get the equipment and the setup from Comcast, so,
Yeah.
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 And maybe even go to Verizon and say, hey, we're about ready to renegotiate our contract.
Well, that would be good.
But, I mean, yeah, I do want to point out, it is not an exclusive contract with Comcast.
Right.
You know,
So with Verizon, since we don't have any fiber optic here, we can't ever see it.
Yeah, but Comcast doesn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah,
they do.
yeah.
I know.
But, I mean, if
fun they don't.
Verizon knows that we're in the middle of a contract negotiation, they may be more interested in.
Bring fiber optic in.
No,
Count on it.
We're too little.
doubt it.
That is $1 million per mile.
Especially since the cable numbers are going
Oh, it's
down.
way
People
down
are
from
really
that.
cutting the box.
Isn't it?
Last I heard was $1 million a mile.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, wow.
Last time I talked to AT&T, they tried to sell me their dish. I said,
Oh,
have
yeah.
you seen Carlisle?
Let
and
me
the
show you my trees.
I still have two on my roof.
Then I can't even get Sirius FM on my.
Alrighty.
Well, action items, we probably should re-up our contract on a month-to-month basis, or at least let them know that that's what we
Yes.
want to do.
Mm-hmm,
Right?
okay.
So that we've covered, at least covered in the short
Yeah,
term.
I think we may be covered, but
We may be,
do we want to
I
make
think
that
we are
payment,
covered,
though?
But we might
probably
want to make
should.
it, well, we'd have to have something with Concord.
Right, because
Our
right now,
agreements with CCTV.
CCTV.
Right, right,
Yes.
okay.
Well, they drafted a contract, like,
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this is a great opportunity for Carlisle. I really, really do. So, and if anything I can do, he knows where to find me.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
Thanks, you
Christine.
guys, for everything you're doing.
Okay, so move on to, kind of behind here, but not really.
We can skip goals.
Goals?
Skip them.
Yeah, we're not skipping goals.
Again?
So on the
I
table.
was able to skip them for an entire year.
You just changed the date.
Yeah, there you go.
And you can tell based upon what we got done.
Oh, please.
Minutes.
Okay, let's move on to goals. And liaison assignments. Let's do liaison assignments first. So we went through this, Alan, and
When I wasn't here.
when you weren't here. But we wanted to make sure that at least some of these, it didn't go too long.
I'm looking for where the list is. I actually added my name on a couple of these.
And so anything in here that you are interested in?
Yep.
Just because there's people's names here already, it doesn't mean it's locked in stone. You do have an opportunity to speak up.
There we go. Liaisons. Yeah.
And then there's some where there is nobody. Those were just ones that nobody felt strongly about, but Claude had them.
You can put me on the historical commission.
What, the historical commission?
I like the historical commission.
All right.
Okay.
You can put me on, along with Kerry, on CCTV.
Okay.
Communication Center, you can add me there.
Makes some sense. Communication center. Oh, that's Nathan had that.
And I'll go to the household recycling, which is not assigned. Are these these should have people assigned, is that what we're
Yes.
saying? Okay, then you can put me on there.
All right. So then we still have CRAC and the Land Stewardship Committee, and that gives you 5. Luke, you only have 6.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
1, 2, 3,
I can
4,
do
5.
crack and land stewardship.
Conservation, that would be Luke?
Oh, no, you have more than
Yeah,
6.
I have more than
Yeah.
6, yeah. 1, 2, 3,
Let's re-add them all.
Well, you can put me on the Energy Task Force.
7, 8, 9. Yeah, I have 9. It's just an upside down 6.
Yeah, put me on Energy Task Force Committee.
Energy.
Yeah, and I can do land stewardship and crack.
That gives you 11.
That'll put me up to 11. Oh my god, I need to eat.
All right,
Looks
so
like I need to shed a couple here.
yeah, Kate
Yeah,
needs
you got a lot, Kate.
Yeah.
Kate needs to shed some, and Alan needs to pick some more up.
Well, you can put me on Veterans, up in place of Kate.
Okay. That has, I reached out to them and I never heard back from them, so I don't know what the heck they're doing.
Actually, they just had some new appointees to it, so they're getting reinvigorated.
Energy Task Force, you said okay?
Yes.
Alan? Okay, that gives you 7.
And since I work with them already, put me on Council on Aging with Kerry.
Do we,
I think we're primarily interested also, though, in getting ones where we can
yeah, reduce?
have
either
one
case?
person,
Yeah,
Yeah, all right.
yeah. Yeah, what about like the first 3, audit, Board of Appeals, Board of Assessors? Do you have a burning desire to be on all of those, Kate?
No, I do not.
Yeah, because I don't, like, Board of Appeals and Board of Assessors isn't a lot of work.
Well, I'll take those if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Switch some of those up.
that gives Alan 9, right?
Yeah, if he does Board of Appeals.
9, 11,
Nine.
and that gives
You're not still on the
Kate
Board of Health, are you?
13?
No, okay.
That gives me, yeah, but I'm sharing a lot of those with you and with other people, so, I mean, they're not full 13s, but some of them are.
Yeah, but the finance ones are, they're really a full-time commitment.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those I have been doing
Yeah,
rather,
and planning, that's a heavy one,
am I on planning?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's right, I am. I did want that one.
Yeah, and facilities, I mean, you have some big ones on there, long-term
Yeah,
caps.
well, facilities,
You're
I'm
on the
I'm
committee.
on the committee,
But you're
Right.
also the liaison.
yes, yeah.
Right, so,
I have to still get done.
All right,
I
well,
haven't been done.
yeah, you've got some big ones.
yeah.
Well, I'm happy to share anything that anybody wants to share.
Kate, if you want to go out, get off technology, I'll go on in your stead there. Although again, we're trying to get rid of single people.
By the way, yeah, I haven't been to a technology one.
I don't know, if they've
Ethan-
had a meeting.
Yeah, I don't think there have been,
Not
yeah,
recently.
if there ever were.
Do you want
Well, the next dairy farm, right, and take agriculture.
Oh, you can have agriculture.
You want
Yeah, that's
technology?
actually, agriculture is important. They're gonna be.
to, so are we changing the technology one?
We can change technology. I'm fine with changing that.
Okay, so Alan's on that.
So Eleanor is what, 27?
Yeah. Why don't we just give them all of them?
Yeah, that's I have no issue with that.
I think we've got most of those covered.
Okay, so Alan now has 12.
Yeah.
So I've taken off 2.
I better save this, huh?
He doesn't have his all for show.
And Kate has 11.
Okay.
So agricultural went to
Alan.
Yeah, so I have 11, Carrie has 11, Kate has 11, you have 11.
You don't have 11.
Yeah, because I took
He had
crack and.
9 plus he took
steward.
crack and land stewardship,
and
so
land
that makes
stewardship.
him 11.
Yeah,
11, 11, 11, and
12.
12.
That's
Good.
pretty equitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be more equitable if you had more and we had fewer.
Yeah.
There you go.
You gotta learn your place. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
All right. So, let's jump to the goals. Oh, I see it was already in the package. I'm sorry, I made you print it out. So I have a couple things here. You know, we've talked about this already. We kind of outlined some of it yesterday. Last time. So what we have are last year's goals, which we never went through to talk about how well we did on them. We also have what I wrote up for the mosquito just prior to town meeting for last year, kind of like what some of our focus was going to be. Just to kind of lay out what our priorities were going to be over the coming years so that people going into town meeting kind of knew what the selectmen were focused on.
This must have been the year before last. No?
This was the year, this was for 2018, so it wasn't last town meeting, it was the town meeting
Yes,
before.
that's what- yeah.
Because the fiscal years are always one number higher than you think they should be.
That's right.
I think that we did a really, really great job on this particular, on what we put in the letter. I think we really did focus on that. And then, and then I have here what I took as from the notes. This is from my notes on our discussion from the last meeting on things that people were suggesting, and Carrie's notes, and, you know, anything anybody emailed to me.
I tried to get it in here, if there's something in here that you said should be on the goals, if there's something not in here that you said should be on the goals, it's a mistake, it's an oversight, so we can still get it in here. I tried to categorize them all. I'll give you all time to read through them, because you didn't have them until just now. So I tried to keep them measurable, you know, not vague, do this type of thing, you know, something that you either do it or you don't do it. I tried to keep them contained, so not something that is like many, many years. These are kind of like action items that can be done. So this isn't a vision document or a mission statement, this is our task list.
A to-do list.
Yes, a to-do list, yes. Maybe we have a few too many things to do on here, but.
Yeah, so well, let's go through it. You know, so cross-board communication, you know, so I think one thing is just, you know, really, the list we just went through, just kind of really making sure that we're active. We're active in those liaisons. I'm not saying you're going to every single meeting, but we know what's going on.
Yeah.
With
I
these
think it's
groups.
really appreciated by the committees that we visit as well. I mean,
Mhm.
I have had people say, gee, great, really it's wonderful that you're here. They like to bounce things off, you know. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's nice.
I have here, because I think it's largely driven by us, but the relationship with the Housing Authority and the Housing Trust. I think, you know, even if it's the Housing Trust that's leading that, I think that we as the Board of Selectmen need to be actively involved. I think it would be really bad if it's perceived that we're not doing anything to improve that relationship.
I know,
Yeah.
what happened to our, you know, we'll have to talk about how we do that.
Yeah.
I don't know when and where we're gonna talk about it, but, I know I dropped the ball on it, but I just got so discouraged.
Yeah, I think we
You
just
know.
have to keep reaching out. I'm trying to get a, but anyway.
Okay.
And then, I am not at all suggesting that we have a bad relationship with the Personnel Board, but I think that it would be good for us to sit down with them and clearly define what is their role, what is our role, just to make sure that we're not expecting that they're doing things that they're not doing, and they're not expecting that we're doing things that we're not doing.
Yeah, I guess I would have rephrased that in, to, much more to what you just said.
You change relationships to roles.
Yes, better define the roles.
Okay.
Of the, and I guess, one of the things I was
I'll
going
say
to.
the roles between.
Well, of the Personnel Board to begin with, not sure they totally understand anymore what, and what their role is vis-à-vis us and the FinCom.
Right, so, exactly, because, you know, just really briefly, I had a conversation with one of them, and, we were talking about the approval of positions. And she said, we don't approve positions, we approve job descriptions and we categorize them. We're not saying it should be hired. You know, we have no idea if there is a need.
Exactly.
Because we're not going in there and sitting down and doing an analysis of how much time needs to be spent on this type of stuff. And that was a big eye-opener to me of, we need to sit down with them and make sure, because I think people go to Personnel Board and they think, well, Personnel Board is approved. They're not, they do not see themselves, at least one person, they don't see themselves as
approving anything but a job description and its categorization.
And I think that's totally appropriate.
Right.
And so I think we need to have a joint meeting maybe with them, FinCom, because I think FinCom sends people to them saying, you gotta get this approved, and really, I think Personnel Board is correct, they're not there
Right.
to approve. It's us and the FinCom to decide, is there the money and do we need it?
Well, I think
And
it all starts between us and Personnel Board. I think that we should just
or
meet with
us and
them and,
Personnel, okay,
yeah.
all right.
Because
I agree.
ultimately, we're the ones that set the priorities for what should be hired or not, right?
Yes.
But it's at this point, it's widely believed by everybody, every committee in town, that personnel board approval is approval of that position.
Right, and maybe that's the way it should be. I'm not saying it isn't, but I think we have to have that discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
And
we're
maybe we need
assuming
to-
something, they're assuming something, and I'm not sure we're assuming the same thing.
And maybe we need to change our language to say, you need to go to Personnel Board to define exactly what position you're looking for.
Right.
Or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I
All right,
agree.
so moving on, that's my,
It's
kind of
really
my
important.
board committee communication type
Yeah.
thing. And then there's personnel for town hall. So we have direct reports, we're supposed to be doing goals, and we're supposed to be doing reviews of them. We are not doing that as managers. We need to do that. It shouldn't have to be a goal, but I think since we're not doing it, we should put it on as a goal for this year, and then hopefully it just gets operationalized.
So, but which, for instance, town planner, we don't do that for, right?
We do it
Because
for our
they-
direct employees, so if you, so Chief Fisher,
Okay,
the fire chief,
oh, okay.
well, we don't have a contract with him, but the new one, we will.
We will.
Mr. Goddard here,
Right.
I think those are the only.
DPW.
DPW.
Yeah, I've never seen one of
Building
those,
commissioner?
yeah.
Yeah, John.
So we need to,
gosh.
you know,
Okay.
I'm not saying we're
Right.
gonna start micromanaging on these people.
No, but we.
We have a role that we're supposed to be playing, that we're
Okay.
not. We're gonna be talking about the town administrator contract later. Even if things were close to being done, I put them in here just because you wanna take credit for what you did.
Right.
Police chief contract, Luke and I are doing that one, Luke and I are doing, Tim's contract. The school committee, so there are two of us are working with the school committee on the teachers' union contract. And then I think this one here, this next one is just, we need to do the goals and reviews for our direct reports, but I think that, just from what I've heard,
Uh-huh.
it's inconsistent as to whether or not they're being done townwide.
Yeah, by the other
Is that
boards.
accurate, Jen and Tim?
Yes, no, that, yeah.
And so I think we just wanna put some more energy into making sure that people are getting their reviews and they're getting goals.
Right, that's part of the problem of our, what do you call it? Our organizational chart.
Ah,
And I don't like the way this next one is worded. I think it's more of,
Yeah.
Actually, let's just delete that one.
Yeah, that's
Let's just
because,
delete that one.
there's all kinds of problems with that one.
New fire chief, and
Yeah.
support that chief in hiring a new deputy chief. I'm not sure if, I don't wanna put a goal in here for it, but I think we do need to tackle the strong chief or weak chief.
Absolutely,
But that's part of this goal.
yeah.
And then look for areas where succession plans should be considered. You know, I think that that's working with other committees and everything, but
It absolutely
we,
is.
you know, we just need to make sure that everybody's thinking about when somebody may be
Well-
retiring, so we're not caught.
And even, well, not only retiring, but we were talking about fire chief today. What happens if he has a heart attack
Mhm.
a year after he's hired? Okay, is there a succession plan for someone that, I mean, you can't go a month or 2 months without a fire chief.
Mhm.
But then that brings me back to our organizational chart, because even though we're not responsible, you know, for some of those positions, the buck still stops here, because if something does not work well in the town hall, we are the ones that are going to be held responsible
Mhm.
at the end of the day, so.
You know, we can always throw that back at some of the boards too. I mean, We can throw it back at planning, we can throw it back at conscom, we can throw it back at Board of Health and say, look, you all have administrators that are.
Just don't work for the Board of
Right.
of Selectmen.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and technically, they report to that board, and ultimately, you know, we want you to develop a succession plan, you know, if you don't,
Mhm.
then,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I
Instead
don't
of
wanna
sa-
say
yeah.
we'll step in,
Let's
but.
say, instead of saying, look for areas where success, let's say, determine where succession
Yeah.
plans should be considered.
Yeah, maybe determine and then put it back on those boards. Because those boards would know better,
Yeah.
you know, than we would anyway, but.
I do want to say one thing, that last night, that Jen is such a high performer, that I sent this at 11:30 last night, and she emailed me first thing this morning saying, I'm sorry about the delay in responding.
We gotta do something about that girl's
Yeah.
morale. And work ethic.
Yeah, and sarcasm.
I was like,
Sarcasm's good.
I was like, wait a second, did I send this at 11:30 last night? All right, policy updates?
Yeah, that's my.
Yep, that one's yours.
My baby.
Town finances, just continue to, you know, work with
Yeah.
FinCom, working through those audit issues. This, I think, was thrown out by, I think, Carrie?
Carrie, yeah.
Look for ways on just reporting the spending and spending percentages for citizens consumption is what I was putting in here. That's working with FinCom, right?
Maybe, yeah, with FinCom
Well,
or just
and
with
with
Carrie,
Carrie, it's
treasurer
with Carrie,
collector, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then continue to educate this board on town finances.
Yeah.
And then continuing to work with Finance Committee on improving the budget process, and I just throw out a couple ideas here is, you know, one is, we really need to establish that hard cutoff date for new budget requests. And then improve personnel request process, kind of ties back to the personnel board one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's,
But that's good.
that's,
It's-
that's an
the
issue that
personnel
comes up
Specific
every
issue that
single
needs to be
year,
addressed.
that I've been on the board anyway.
Yeah. I agree.
And then we have outreach. I don't know exactly what that first word is, but,
Increase.
Increase.
you know, just increase our communication from the town. You know, I was also, you know, after I wrote this and then I read this, and I was like, oh, yeah, you know, we should do more things like this.
Mhm.
You know, what are we doing? And then we have this website. Websites don't manage themselves. You know, if we want to be using it as a communication vehicle from the board, we should be thinking about things that we could be asking Jen to post.
And it is leagues better than it was.
And then I have one that's just, you know, we create all these committees and working groups, and we need to support them. And these were just the ones that I saw as kind of either things that stalled or things that are actively in, you know, either they're new or they're actively in the middle of a major thing that I thought we should probably just really keep our eye on. You know, the technology group, you know, did a lot of work early on. I think it's a little bit stalled now. The facilities committee, I think, is gonna need a lot of, you know, it's brand new.
Yeah.
I don't know, what's the status of hiring is that job has it been posted?
It's been posted, and we didn't have a lot of good applications, but we're interviewing a candidate next week.
Okay.
The building commissioner, Bill Rizzo, and I are gonna interview someone that looks good, so.
You know, the communications tower is, you know, right in the middle of everything. Here's one that stalled, you know, Greeno barn removal.
Because nobody wants to do it.
And then, we're gonna need to make sure that we're supporting the master planning project, and then supporting this complete streets project.
That's a good list.
Yep, good list. I move we adopt it as amended.
It's refreshing to see nothing about 40B on here or the Highland. Although I'm not sure this should be refreshing to not see anything about the Highland, because we still have to make better use of that asset, town assets.
Well, let me just say that this is what we need to be focused on. Like, at the end of the year, we want to be done with this, but it doesn't mean we can't tackle these other issues.
Yes, that's right.
As long as it doesn't mean we're not getting these things done.
Yeah. So, do we want to adopt these, or do we just say
I
that we're
think
going to do it?
I think adopting them is.
Formal
yeah.
adoption?
Yeah.
I thought I heard of,
moved it.
then I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Did you say aye?
Good.
Okay, it was unanimous then. I will make
Okay.
these changes. Actually, I will give this to Jen, for Jen to make these changes. I'm
gonna
getting
give
on
her
a plane
mine.
in the morning. Great, thank you all.
Thank you.
Are there any liaison reports?
Just a quick one.
So,
Cranberry Bog Committee, so,
well,
long story short, the bog.
Okay, we're done?
Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Basically, the bog committee, felt that it went as far as it could go, so it is now essentially punted back to Conscom. Conscom is going to, lead the charge, if you will, in kind of the next steps, what do they think is best? They formed it must be a working group, because it got a couple of Conscom members on there, it's got a couple of the old, bog committee members on there. And then I'm there in some capacity. But the idea is to really, get a little more focused and move this thing forward. Because it just seemed like we were spinning our wheels.
Mhm.
So, we'll figure out we don't have any meetings yet on the books. But, once we do, we'll have a little more info. But it looks like it's gonna be, at least another year or so before something really comes out of that. But yeah.
Another year or so.
Another year or so. Yeah, it looks like we're probably gonna end up maintaining it kinda as we are for at least another year or so.
How much was that?
It was like
15.
Yeah, somewhere in the 15 range. And that's not guaranteed. I mean, things could move faster, but there are opportunities for grant funding for certain things, and before we ask the town for hundreds of thousands of dollars to do something, we really need to explore all the options, make sure
Mhm.
all the funding sources are identified and, either applied to or exhausted in some sort of fashion, because it's, excuse me, it's too expensive a venture to just kind of jump in with both feet on one thing. So.
Right, okay. Great.
I still vote for high bush blueberries.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll vote for that too.
Organic.
I'll vote for that too.
my husband would vote for grapes.
There you go, yeah. Well, that's-
Okay, any other
Now,
liaison?
you probably saw an article in the Mosquito from the coordinator of the Center Park,
Yeah.
hoping to raise $50,000 this fall for the next 3 years, maintenance of the park, and to find a coordinator to replace her, Ms. Perry, and provide a stipend in that respect to attract a person to do that. So that's her wish for the future of the park, and we certainly wish her well in her endeavors in doing that. We'll just have to see what kind of response she gets. Again, the success or failure of Center Park is going to rest solely on the amount of community support that it receives.
So what happens if she raises the money, but nobody steps forward to manage the park?
Well, presumably, she would stay in place as long as we wanted her to.
Yeah, but we decided that that was until December 31st,
Yeah.
right?
And if there was no,
So if there's $50,000, but no body or
beyond
person
her,
to manage it, we're kind of stuck in a pickle there.
Well, to a point, I mean, we could let Gary maintain it, and then we could use the funds if he says, oh, we should do this or do that. We use those funds. It would still support Center Park, but it just wouldn't be outsourced.
I think also, if there was funding, I think we would find others that would be interested in being involved.
Yeah, that's true too.
Okay.
You know, it's still a cloud, dark cloud in terms of its future.
Alrighty, thank you. Anybody else?
Dear committee is having, we've had 33 applicants,
Wow.
and 18 will be approved. 6 have been from town, the other 12 from out of town. They all have submitted their paperwork appropriately. The next week or 10 days, they're all going to be interviewed at the Concord Rod and Glen Club and have their proficiency tests made. So, I mean, this is,
This is what
they're
they-
scheduled.
it's this
Yeah,
part.
that's right.
It's that part that's the hard.
Robin Hood.
Yes, bow
and,
hunting,
yeah,
don't
bow hunting.
forget.
So it's, we'll be ready
So
by.
who will be there with the apple on their head?
Well, the committee, basically. The
okay.
whole committee will be there.
It's appropriate.
Okay, so we need to make some new appointments.
We may, depending on how good they aim.
Right.
Yikes.
But again, 18 hunters in 5 designated town-owned properties.
Mhm.
And hope for the
Yeah,
hope for the best.
yeah.
In the end of our tech problem.
Well,
So I think you've got plenty of update on the thing that I've been most active on, which is the fire chief search committee. Anybody?
Could I request, Jen, that you send the various committees the names of their new liaisons, and to please request that they put our email on their agenda distribution list, because I find it's hard for me to keep track of who's meeting when if I'm
Yeah.
not getting
Yeah,
just a
I-
copy of the agenda and stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
that would
And
be very.
that will be a
very
step
helpful.
towards our
Very
goal
helpful.
of
Increasing
active
communities,
participation in the meetings. Great.
All right. Should we go to minutes? We have one set of minutes, July 24th?
Yes, there's just one typo on the first line, and I've already given it to Jen. So
What was that?
the meeting was on July 24th, and it says the Board of Selectmen met on Tuesday, June 19th. And then it got amended to June 24th, and then now it needs to be amended to July 24th.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll be all square.
The summer is just going by way too fast for Jen.
Well, that's what happens when your time at night
I
is
mean,
taken up
and
responding
I
to the
read
chairman
right
of the
over
board
it.
here.
11:30 at night.
All right.
So
Is
I move
there-
approval of the minutes as amended.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right, we will now go into executive session.
I move that the board enter into an executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation for J.J. Supple, discuss strategy with respect to non-union bargaining as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position, and that afterwards the board will not return to open session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Brown eye.
Kissinger, aye.
Read aye.
Lewis, aye.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
All right, and so that concludes the open session of tonight's meeting. Thank you all very much.